Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello and I guess good day to our fine folks over there in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Oceania, all over the world, except here in North America, where it is 4 a.m. Welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and I am joined today by the one, the only, KLC's original Aussie. It's Vin. Welcome, Vin. Welcome, Vin.
What up? What up, chat? Welcome. Welcome. You can thank me for the late night streams. I forced Derek into it. I gave him like literally a list of, this is the times I could do it. You figure it out.
Yeah. So, I obviously I'm exploring the space of being unemployed, and one of the things.
Being a full-time Twitch streamer.
Yeah, becoming a full-time Twitch streamer. So, and obviously I've had a lot of late streams, and it's like, well, at this point, this is normally when my late night streams have been ending. So, this is just me staying up a couple hours later. I kind of slept in late. And we'll see. We're not going to do this every week, but if we do this, once or twice a month, I really want to explore the time availability that I have and try to make some additional streams available to people who traditionally have only gotten, to watch us on the VOD. So this
and for anyone blaming me in the chat or in the VOD, I gave him a pretty wide time. He chose the start time. I didn't. It was a pretty wide window.
Well, let us know in comments if you're watching this later or in the chat what time, because I could start this an hour later or 2 hours later. We can play around with the time a little bit, but we definitely want to try to get some more of our European friends, some of our Australian, New Zealand friends into the chats and give you all an opportunity to hang out as well. So, I mean, that's always been one of my goals.
So what the heck it ends up with.
Yeah, well, we're already up to 20.
Oh, damn.
So real quick, by the way, if you are not already aware, we are trying to get affiliate status on Twitch. And so if you haven't done already, I think this is it. Is this it? Yes. If you haven't done already, head over at some point to twitch.tv/Knights of Last Call. That is our Twitch channel. You can go ahead and follow me over there. And my goal is to become an affiliate on Twitch. And the reason I really want to do that is because once I become an affiliate, a lot of people have Amazon Prime subscriptions, and you can throw me a sub over on Twitter or on Twitch for free, basically. It's kind of I'm looking for ways to increase the
eBeg.
eBeg. I'm looking for ways to pad the job loss.
Monetize.
Well, here's the thing. If I can do that now, by the way, let me be very clear about something. Like most things on this channel, this was not my idea. I
totally brought it up.
This is Vin's idea. Like he's been telling me for what, 2 years? I don't even know how long.
Yep.
For a long time. It's like, why aren't you on Twitch? And I was always just like, well, I don't care. Well, now I do.
It took me like 10 minutes to figure it out. This is what's frustrating.
It did take me about 10 minutes. I'm not even gonna lie. But yeah, but it's a cool way. I know there's tons of people. Obviously, we have our incredible patrons. We have people who come and support us, give tips, give super chats. But a lot of people would love to throw me a couple bucks, but money's tight. I get it. I just lost my job. But if you have Amazon Prime already, and you're not using it, which, let's face it, probably a lot of people aren't. It's literally costs you nothing. The only person that costs money is Jeff Bezos. So, but a couple hundred people throw their Twitch Prime subs to me. That's a couple $100 in my pocket every month. That's grocery money. So. Every little bit helps. But anyway, so if you go over to twitch.tv/Knights of Last Call, we do not have a agenda per se tonight. Vin is here. Vin and I there's a Venn diagram, but it's not a circle and it's not two circles. It's a complicated, wavy Aes Sedai kind of symbol.
Yes, we're not yin and yang, but we're close. Something like that.
Right. I am the flame of Tar-Valon. He is the fang of the dragon. And
1,000%. I would never be the flame. The flame's lame.
Oh, the flame is so cool.
Tar-Val was corrupt and awful, and the Aes Sedai sucked. I'm sorry. I only liked like 3 of them in the entire book series. Sorry, we're tangenting too early.
Yeah. So for those of you who may not be aware, as sort of a joke, we created this thing we call the Wheel of Tangents. And the Wheel of Tangents is basically a bunch of stuff that people have put in from the Patreon, and they're tangents that we'll talk about. And it's $5 either in Super Chat or tips. You can use Super Chat on YouTube, or you can go to our Stream Elements page. There's a link in the description. I haven't quite figured out how to link it to Twitter or to Twitch yet. But yes, any case, that will spin the wheel, and we'll start talking about that tangent for at least a good while, or until somebody spins the wheel again, and then we'll change the topic. The wheel has been tinkered with. What we did is we reached out to the patrons, and we asked them to put in their topics that they would like to see. I do not know what these topics are, and neither does Vin. So if you guys want to see one of these random tangents and see how we handle it completely off the cuff, then you know what to do. Drop $5 in a tip or a super chat. In the meantime, Vin, you enjoyed the stream from Thursday where we talked about PF2 Dungeons.
Well, it's interesting, right? So before, like a couple weeks ago, you did some dungeon streams for Shadowdock. I didn't watch them because I don't give a shit about Shadowdock. But not to say it's a bad system or anything. I just don't care. And when I mentioned how interested I was in those, your first response was that you don't like dungeons, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I remembered how much I've shit on dungeons for the last while. But we got a tip.
Yes, we do. All right. Well, we'll talk about dungeons later. It's time to spin the wheel. All right, here we go. Let me find it. Okay, here we go. Control Enter to spin. Thank you, Brandon, for that, by the way. All right. OED from the Patreon. Favorite depiction of D&D in a movie/TV show, or any funny depiction of nerd culture. Ooh. So,
I mean, you have an answer. You have to have like.
Well, of course, I probably have a lot of answers.
You're a fucking nerd.
So I guess the question is, what does D&D mean in terms of like?
Yes.
Do you mean actual D&D? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, Stranger Things." That motherfucker was throwing a D20 to attack with a fireball, okay? And it was
playing 4th edition.
It was 1985. They weren't playing 4th edition, okay? So that clearly was not right. I will say that while it is obviously weirdly over the top, I do rather enjoy the depiction of D&D as presented in the Dungeons and Dragons episode of Community. There's 2 Dungeons and Dragons episodes.
Oh, Community. Okay, I was wondering where the heck you were going with it. All right, sure.
which I think is pretty awesome. And of course, the first episode is very hard to find these days, because the first D&D episode, Chang shows up dressed as a drow. And they like accuse him of being in blackface, and he goes, "I'm a drow." And but apparently that was enough to get the episode actually banned. But
that was because for years after that episode, those 2 episodes aired, it was like the touchstone. Everyone talked about that as like one of their favorite D&D things ever.
I mean, it was,
because it's hilarious.
Yes. I mean, there's so many things in that. Like, again, it was obviously dialed up to like 11. But I really like. I mean, there's just so many great moments in that. And I actually like the second one too a lot, with the Dean playing and the rubbing the sword, the hilt, and he has to roll a nat 1, he's throwing it away. But yeah, so it was so that was pretty good. I really didn't think that like Stranger Things depiction of D&D was actually all that good.
I have a quick question, like a tangent to the tangent, Stranger Things.
Sure.
Stranger Things is famous for the term upside down.
Yeah.
And when they came up with that, they were actually looking at the D&D battle map and they flipped it over or whatever. Is there any mention of the upside down in D&D? Is that just a purely Stranger Things term?
No, that's a purely Stranger Thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, sorry, that was the I agree that Stranger Things is slightly it's a crazy touchdown because it's only in really one episode, really.
No, because I didn't. So, true story. I absolutely loved Stranger Things when it first came out. I thought the first season was incredible.
First season was good.
Yeah, and the second season was a major step down. I liked some of the things that they were doing with it, but it was a major step down. The third season, I liked more because I really liked
the first season or the second season.
Than the first season, because
again, you're just wrong. But it's good. It's better than the second season.
Well,
but
okay, well, it's definitely better than the second season. The thing about the first season is the first season ultimately was more scary horror, and that's just not my jam. Right? It was more Cthulhu.
Okay.
The third season had great secondary characters because if I'm going to be completely honest with you, all the kids except for maybe like Mike, what's his real name? I don't even know. But Mike Wheeler, okay, and Lucas, okay, suck. They're not compelling and they're not good actors, and I just don't think they're very particularly interesting. I also don't think the kid that plays Will Byers, I mean, I know he's probably like 27 now, but like, I don't think he's particularly a good actor. So the only actor I really liked of them is Dustin, right? The kid with no teeth or whatever. The real. I mean, they're all nerdy, but like
he became super sweary as this series went on. Yeah,
so they and I think the creators were like, "Oh shit, this game is this is popular." Goblins and Android says tangent.
Goblins and Androids tip $5.
Do you have to finish a tangent before we get a new tangent, or is the tangent?
No, I mean we have to pay it respect if someone had the $5. So in terms of my favorite depiction of D&D, I will just say number one. I think the community episode is actually really, really great. There's also a great depiction of it on this. It's a show that nobody knows called Freaks and Geeks. It was only out for like 1 or 2 seasons. And there's a really good, because there's the cool kids and then like the nerdy kids. And they invite the cool kid to come to their D&D game. And he is awesome. And he's, has a lot of fun with it. Big
I'll
Bang.
give my answer.
All right, go give your answer.
I hate every depiction of D&D in terms of how it's played. And I refuse to like any of them, even though Ben has recommended some great stuff that is very funny. I still hate it.
You mean like
my answer is.
You mean like the comedy ones, like the
any of them?
Okay.
Pick any. But I really like the D&D movie, the official D&D movie. That was great. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You liked Honor Among Thieves, or are we talking about the original D&D movie?
No. That one was shit. I liked Honor Among Thieves.
Like you liked it, not ironically.
No, I love the expression on your face right now.
It wasn't bad.
I love that movie.
It wasn't bad.
It was so fun.
And my expectations were so low that when you come in and deliver like a C-, it feels like if I'm grading it on a curve, it got a B+.
Right. I think as a kids/teens movie, it's a good B+. I think that's about right. And I really like that. So,
all right, Goblins and Android.
Tangent.
Here we go. Tangent. All right. Our next tangent is coming in from. Ooh, it looks like it's coming in from an anonymous person. Someone didn't want to own up. It says, if you could get Derek/Vin, so I guess that means either or, to play a game of your choice. Okay, if you could get me to play a game of your choice for a full campaign, what would it be? And if I could get you to play a game of my choice for a full campaign, what would it be?
French toast. All right. So, a game of my choice for Derek.
Yeah. And I guess it's not just maybe I'm running it or playing in it or you're running it. That part wasn't clear. So you can set the.
Okay. I know. For both choices, you're playing it because you hate playing.
Yeah.
And I have 2 like alternate versions of this. One is like maybe he'd enjoy this and I want to see his opinions on it, and the other one is I know he'll hate it and therefore I want to watch it. The second one is
so I knew that shot. I mean, the real question here is it always going to be Schadenfreude? Like, are we going for like I know that you'll hate every minute of this because I can go straight to Monster Hearts, right? Like I can just go straight to Monster Hearts.
Sure, absolutely. So the hate it one's obvious because I still think it's a good system. Well, it's one of my favorite systems. Call of Cthulhu. I would love to see Derek forced not only to play it, but to play it in one of those groups that everyone else is taking it super seriously.
Right. The assumption here, I guess, is that we're doing it in good faith. Right.
Yes. And therefore you have to hate it as much as physically possible. That's the hate it one. But the like it one, I reckon you might actually like one of 3 games. I think, and these are all up and comers. I reckon you'd like Draw Steel, DC 20, or Daggerheart. And of the 3, I'd probably like to see you play Draw Steel because I think that's the most complicated and the most like PF2. And I'm curious if it grabs you in a way that PF2 doesn't anymore. So
Right.
That's my answer.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting stake because I mean there's always this part of me that enjoys a complicated game. You know, that is like undeniably the fact. And I like complex games. I mean, we're playing Torchbearer, and if you watch that game, I mean that game doesn't have grids, but it's a very complex game. Like, you know, you hear people saying it's like, you know, they're going to this like, well, I'm going to aid instead of help. If I help, I could spend a fate point and synergize. You know, like it's this you know, it's a very crunchy game. That being said, I just there's something about maybe it's just I've played one too many round-based, grid-based games that they all
you are like done with it.
They just all just like I get it. You're doing something cool. Oh, your victories are piling up, and now you've got cool things. And I'm like, I was doing cool things back in 2007 with Book of Nine Swords. Like this is old hat from. I get it.
And the crazy thing is, there's a whole generation in there that's cooler than Book of Nine Swords. Nothing that's cooler either. It's just like, what is?
Like I get it. There's a whole generation of people who never played Book of Nine Swords, obviously, never played 4th edition. They've been playing 5th edition, you know, and they've been happy with their like once a day you can do an extra D6 of damage, you know, and they're like, oh wow, you know. And so Draw Steel comes out, and I get why it's very like, and same thing with DC 20. Right, which you know, obviously Dungeon Coach has some very strong 4E influences there as well. And people are like, "Look at this! Your martial character is so cool, and you can do things, and like you're pushing people around the battlefield in big shock waves of your magical energy." And I'm like, "Bro, I've been doing that for a long time." So
right, and so like I know that you're jaded and awful.
Yes,
but I'm curious if one of these games can grab you again because that's I want to see Derek smile once. And that's all really. That's not playing some stuff like I was going to swear there something like freaking not Shadow Dark. What was the game you just talked about with the resource mechanics and the
Torchbearer?
The Torchbearer, yeah. Games I will never play.
Right now, if you're watching at home, I mean, I'm running, not playing, but I mean, there are plenty of times where I'm like, like delightful in Torchbearer, as my players are thrilled and terrified at the same time at the incredible awesomeness of that game. Okay, so if I had to play a game that you would hate, that I know you would hate, it would obviously be Monster Hearts.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh!
And what I would do is I would set up a high school campaign where we would have 8 seasons, okay, and a season might be.
Is that a session?
Well, no, a season is going to be several sessions, but it's going to be probably like 3 to 6.
Seems like a year of play.
Well, so the first season, right? The first season is up until Christmas break, right? Holiday break, Christmas holiday. So that's going to be like homecoming and the winter formal, right? So fall semester, and then there's the winter break, a phase where we might like discuss online like how the game's going. Then we come back in for spring semester, right? And that's going to be like the spring formal and different sports, and then we'll have a summer session between the seasons where we kind of describe what happened, and then we go into sophomore year, and then we repeat, and obviously we culminate with senior year, including the spring semester, prom, graduation, and I would sort of really mix in a lot of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer elements. So it would be this sort of triumvirate of like teen supernatural romance, but also like teen monster hunter drama. Okay.
Well, that's the thing, right? I love a lot about that game if it wasn't for the smut. If everything else I'm in for, and it sounds like everything you're describing actually sounds like awesome to me. I freaking love the idea of playing a Buffy the Vampire freaking 3 season.
Did you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I watched a bit.
But generally speaking, you're aware of it and such a thing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know that Buffy the Vampire Slayer has sex on that show.
Oh yeah, and that's when it got really weird.
With vampires.
Yeah, it was really weird. I was already weirded out when it was like
Buffy the Vampire Slayer essentially has a sex move because when Buffy has sex with Angel or a vampire, they lose their soul and become super evil. So
ridiculous.
It's a thing.
I think I got turned off the moment Angel was introduced, and I was like, okay, he's cool. And then he had a love interest with the 16-year-old girl. And I was like, I'm out. And I didn't make it to be fair, I made through that still totals like 10 hours or something just to get to that point.
To be clear,
I did not last long.
To be clear, how old was Edward? How old was Bella?
That was also weird.
You know?
Whedon gonna Whedon. Yeah, you're not wrong. Brandon in the chat.
I'm just saying, Bella was like what? I don't think she could drive, or she was just about to drive.
I think she was 16 as well. I think 16 is like the classic.
Right. Yeah. It's the age of majority apparently.
It's the age of high school romance. Definitely.
Yeah, it's the age of high school romance. All I'm saying is Edward was like at least 90 or something like that. But
I think he was like a 90 or 100, something like that.
Yeah, I mean he was up there. He was up there.
Yeah.
Any case, but here's the crazy part though, right? But if you had no, but wait. But if you had a teenage vampire who was in high school, right?
Yes.
And had the relative appearance of a teen and was going as a teen, and but if that vampire was hooking up with an older teacher, that would somehow be more scandalous. Even though the vampire is actually older, but the vampire is older. The vampire is older.
Let's be clear. Sex makes no sense. It doesn't make sense in any context.
I'm just saying once you start throwing in immortal beings, okay, it really changes the math on the whole experience.
Yes.
So here's the crazy part, by the way. That would be my Vin. I want Vin to hate it. And I think Vin would knock it out of the park. I think he would do so well.
Oh yeah, I'd love it. I'd do so well. Yeah. Because I'm brave. If I got to that point, if I've gotten that degenerate to play in the first place,
right,
I'll go all in. Absolutely.
Now, the easy answer that I would give. Smendon came in with $5. We're gonna change the topic. I will give my real answer though.
Smendon tipped $5. Straying into tangent territory here, lads.
So we're straying into tangent territory here. I will say, Smendon. Ayla says Smendon MVP. I will say the easy answer is the game I would actually like to see you play is Torchbearer. Because I think because I think you would really enjoy the role playing.
Around to it.
I think you'd really enjoy the role playing elements, but I also think you'd really enjoy the part where you're like, ooh, like I can metagame this. I can beat it. Like there's a way to play.
I have a long history of not playing some games I know I love, like Defense Against the Ancients, Dota.
Yep.
And similar with I knew I'd like them, and I just never went near them. Because I knew I'd just get too deep into it, and that's fair. Torchbearer is like that, except it would be selling my soul.
Right, exactly.
Instead of changing my taste.
But that's the easy answer. The more complex answer is I think it would be a fun, it would be cool. Because we talked about it and you were like, no, that sounds awesome. When I was talking about like the hallway stretches 50 feet before you. We were talking about like old school procedural dungeon crawling.
Oh my dude, I'd play the shit out of like a proper classic dungeon crawl, bro. 1,000%.
And I was like, I was shocked. I was like, you would enjoy that? You're like, dude, that sounds so great. Where I'm like,
that's so good.
30 feet down on the left wall, there's an ancient stone door, and at the end of the hallway, a archway made of red stone. And you're like, oh, that sounds amazing. That's awesome.
I check every inch of this hallway. All right, I press against the left wall with my 10-foot pole. What happens? Yes.
Now, we're going to tangent because we're tangenting on a tangent. I do want to ask, did you see our Friday night or Saturday night stream? The one?
No, because it was named awfully.
How we dungeoned?
No, that part I liked. Oh. But the rest of the name was notes for like things you'll never need or whatever.
Right. So the purpose of that stream was me telling people how we used to play Dungeons and Dragons in 3rd edition.
Right.
And we were like blowing people's mind because they were like, wait, what? And some people, we were blowing their mind like, that sounds like the worst thing that I ever just heard in my life. Like I was talking about how like we would use detect evil and use the evil signatures and use the table in the book to then deduce what monster it was, and like we could figure out whether it was like an elemental or a demon or an undead or just a really powerful creature, using our basis of how much CR knowledge we have, using locate object to triangulate treasure locations within the map.
Oh, that's classic. That's absolutely classic. Absolutely.
All right. Anyways, here we go. The wheel's spinning. Oh, I gotta bring up the wheel. Hold on a second. It's spinning. It's spinning. It's spinning.
Tangent.
Oh, this is from a new patron. Ooh, Mad Dog Jack 2020. What effect have video games have had on gaming? And maybe I would say like, and I think that's a very broad statement. So I will kind of tweak it a little bit, which is to say, what effect have video games have had on our, TTRPG kind of gaming, right? Like how have you kind of been influenced by video games?
There's like a whole stream worth of depth here. That's a lot. Yeah.
Less so for me, obviously, because I don't play that many video games, right? But I will say my main way that I've been influenced by video games is through Smith. Because Smith, who is my GM and my players, but especially when he GMs, he's like, oh, this is from Guild Wars 2. This is from, this is from this. For me personally, though, the thing that has really influenced my role-playing game likes and dislikes have been the early MMOs, specifically EverQuest. Because EverQuest came out in 1999. EverQuest came out in 1999. Third edition came out in 2000. So at that time, I was playing EverQuest and D&D Third Edition, and they kind of merged into this sort of this holistic thing. And so a lot of the things that I liked from EverQuest, which was like, oh, I'm casting 30 buffs, and like I have like buffs from the Enchanter, buffs from the Ranger, buffs from the Cleric, buffs from the Paladin, buffs from the Necromancer. When we played Third Edition, we're like, yeah, that's how we want to play. We want to have this buff, this buff, this buff, this buff, this buff. I know this sounds crazy, but when we played Third Edition, we kind of liked, grinding.
Yeah. Okay.
You were young. We were all in our early 20s.
You guys use XP for rewards for the whole time, right?
Yeah. We use CR based experience points, but like, the guys would come over to my house sometimes unannounced. They would just show up at my front door, knock on the door, and say, "We're playing." And time was so free that they would basically, they'd bring pizza, they'd bring soda, they'd bring chips and snacks, and it was like us sitting around almost doing a LAN party. But instead of playing on EverQuest, we were rolling dice and sitting around the table together. And, for me, that was a lot of fun because there was a lot of time that I also spent doing the same exact thing with those same exact people in EverQuest. But the difference is we were doing it in person. And obviously, because it was a D&D, it was a TTRPG, I could, and back then, this is Derek before the indie revolution, Derek was kind of more of a, he was a traditionalist gamer, he'd grown up playing second edition, and sure, I'd played Earth Dawn, and we had started to experiment with games like in the late 90s with like the Dragonlance 5th Age narrative game. But for the most part, I was still kind of like, my job is to present a realistic depiction of this fantasy world and respond as a referee, not like a director who's like thinking about like, how do I engage the players and ask them challenging questions and see what they respond with? So in that end, I was kind of like, yeah, cool. Like I'll be the sort of CPU, and I thought it was really fun.
There you go. I was my first things that came to mind for this question was actually the broad answers. So everything from XP rewards has totally changed since video games started influencing the genre. Combat has fundamentally changed in a lot of ways since video games influenced the genre, but it's gone back and forth as well. Like 5e obviously tried to go back a bit from 4e, but 4e you can just look at that and go, that's a fucking video game. The class expectations is a big one. How like the class fantasies is a big one. That not necessarily how they play, but yeah, the class fantasies. But for me, to your version of the question, which is how they've influenced our personal kind of take on TTRPGs, for me, it's the Souls games. So Souls series and Elden Ring. For me, I realized that I liked the struggle. I liked being outmatched by the enemy and having to figure out how to beat them with wiles and intelligence.
Okay, tangent off of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the classic dilemma there is in those games, you fight the boss. It's really tough.
Yes.
You die.
You die a bunch.
You reload.
Yep.
And you do it again.
Yep.
And with the exception, apparently, of Final Fantasy XIV Online, the TTRPG, no RPG game has ever had essentially a do-over save point mechanic, to the best of my knowledge.
Correct. Yes.
So how does that influence your perception of TTRPGs? Because because I see this all the time, and I do think it's really, really problematic. Is people will turn the difficulty because they want that challenge, and they turn the difficulty knob all the way to 11 on their games.
Yeah.
But then the players still win all the time. So I'm like, was it really that difficult?
Right. So there's two ways I've squared this circle. One way, first of all, let's be clear, raw rules are out the fucking window years ago. Like the moment you talk about Souls and a freaking TTRPG, unless you're playing the Dark Souls TTRPG, you have to throw the raw rules rulebook just out, and you have to start customizing. But there's two ways to square the circle. One is that I've spent hours and hours designing every enemy in every combat to make sure they're at that level, which is just past like if you're playing Pathfinder 2e, just past extreme. But I did things like increase the damage output, lower the AC, So I essentially had to custom tinker every enemy to a point where I knew that the enemy could wipe the party, but the party wasn't like throwing 1 damage at them, right?
But I've always,
it was like a very...
but I've always struggled with this because the even if you have all these different mechanics. Because you're talking about basically turning these combats into a puzzle.
Yes, absolutely.
But the problem is the time horizon of a typical D20 based round based initiative is so short. You might only get to go 3 or 4 times. Maybe 5 or 6. In a really long fight. So your ability to make adjustments and choices and changes is so limited. That I just
this is why you do things like what we talked about before, which is you have when you first enter the dungeon or whatnot, the area, you fight one enemy, and that enemy teaches you about the next enemy, and that enemy teaches you about. So that's what I mean. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours. This is the one way I did it. Hours and hours and hours and hours just designing the freaking map and the enemies before even putting a player into it. That's one way. The other way I squared the circle was just taking out death.
Okay, well that makes sense. By the way, here's the thing: before you say that sounds ridiculous, go read your D&D book. Go read your 5th edition book. Go read your AD&D 1st edition book. They took out death too. It's called Raise Dead.
Right.
It's actually we have entered this really strange place in RPGdom where like Raise Dead has never been less popular. Right? There's a lot of people who feel like it kills the game. If there's no death, nothing means anything. People have to be able to die heroically in order for the game to matter. So at one hand, you have people saying this, but on the other hand, you've never had a group of, and I say group in a generic sense, of people less willing to have their character die ever
than the modern TTRPG audience.
Than the modern TTRPG audience. So it's like, you're putting you know what you're doing? You're putting your GM in a real fucked position, and that's why they have to fudge all the time. Because you're basically saying, I don't want Raise Dead in my game because that'll cheapen death. So when I die, I want it to mean something. But also, I definitely don't want to die because I got to see my characters. And you're like, okay, cool. So why don't we play this system that doesn't have death? No, I just told you. If there's no death, then it doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't matter.
So then you're okay with dying? Well, no, I'm totally not okay with dying. So what do you want from me? And you're like, I want you to throw challenging encounters at me, okay, and then either play it and then that I can always beat, and to do that, I want you to do one of 2 things, and these are your choices. I want you to play a system where you probably can't be sure if I could do that or not, and therefore if I do fail, I want you to fudge to get fix it. That's the 5e solution. Or a system which is so mathematically designed that you can never fucking lose ever, that you don't have to fudge because the system will do it for you. That's the PF2 solution.
It's ridiculous. And PF2, and that's the thing. PF2 does a good job at it for what it does, for what it is.
Fantastic job at it.
I'm creating like essentially a hidden whose line is it anyway. Right. Because the points really don't matter and no one's really counting, but it looks like it's all working.
That's what I hate the most. I just hate that so much. I can't even begin to describe how much I hate it. Because
so Earlier has played in a game where I took out death, and for me I didn't take out death. Essentially you died and then you went to this nether realm and then you came back the next day, right? And so your old body was there on the beach when you got there, but you're now reborn. So it and things like that. You can do cool things with it, but the players have to be willing to accept that. And obviously you're going off the rule book. You're throwing out the rules. But the players have to be willing to accept the idea that maybe they can die. And when you do that, you can have a brutal, awesome game with crazy high challenge, and the consequences can all be narrative based, right? The world changes because you failed.
Well, and this is why, for my money, the Fabula Ultima system is truly the best, because the players can always surrender. And when they surrender, their character does not die. And by the way, there's no like dying rules, dying 1, dying 2. All those rules are designed to just keep you from dying. Even though it's called the dying condition, it's actually designed to keep you from dying. But
literally, this is their roadblocks before death. Yeah.
But in Fabula Ultima, when you get to 0, you're out. But you can always choose to surrender. And when you choose to surrender, your character makes it on. Now, there might be narrative consequences, but you can also sacrifice. And when you sacrifice, your character is removed. It's not ambivalent. Your character is destroyed, but it was your call, and you get to go out doing something awesome. So you can
I like to call dread rules.
Yes. Right. The knock the tower over. Right. And you get that one final, yeah, exactly. All right. We got a super chat. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Thank you for your donation. $5 super chat. It's time to spin the wheel of tangents.
Snap.
Here we go. Still got about 37 entries, so we should. All right, we've got one from Jackal Torn Moons. Favorite Final Fantasy VI party?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm going to just answer favorite Final Fantasy party, but you go for 6 because I didn't really jump onto 6.
Wait, you didn't play 6? 3? AKA 3? You didn't play it?
No. I thought the Magica was dumb.
Wait, what? It's basically
everyone else loves this stupid opening with the robots, and I fucking hated it. I was like, "What is?"
It had mode 7.
It did have mode 7.
So I can tell you what my final party was. My final party. So arguably these were my favorite characters. Was Terra. Well, my favorite character is Celis. So, but my final, I hated. Let me tell you the characters I hated. You ready for it? Shadow. Fuck Shadow. I hated Shadow. I hated Locke. I didn't like Locke. I mean, everyone's like, oh, he's so cool. I didn't like Locke. I didn't like Shadow. I definitely didn't like Umaro, and I didn't like Mog, although I did like the Moogle charm. So Mog was in my party for most of it, because, by the way, one thing about Final Fantasy games you'll learn about me in the later Final Fantasy games, I didn't really like them as much, so I just wanted to play them and get through them as fast as possible. So I tended to find stuff that made random encounters not happen. Anyways, my final 4 were Terra, Celis, Edgar, Sabin. So that was my party.
So for someone who doesn't care about FF6, what was special about those 4 characters?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. Well, Terra's like,
was that essentially just a white mage, red mage?
Well, Terra is
fighter.
I mean, Terra and Celis are both like warrior / Terra's a mage as well. I mean, she's kind of like a both. She's like a mage caster. Sabin is the guy who uses Sabin I chose because I really like Street Fighter 2, and Sabin has you have to like do like the Street Fighter Hadouken to input his commands. I liked Cyan, the sword, the old knight, but it got so boring waiting for his sword technique to charge up that I got rid of him, and I replaced him with Edgar. And just because I thought it was funny that Edgar would like go and like jump on the enemies with a chainsaw or a drill and would just sit there and I don't know why I had Edgar. I always have like a random third person or fourth person in my party they don't really give a shit about, and they kind of just like fill in the space. Like when I played Final Fantasy VII, I was devastated when Aerith, yes, with an S, died, because I've never played a game where she was called Aerith. Okay, I've only played a game where she was called Aerith, but I was devastated when she died because obviously she was awesome, but also she was like my second best character. So Red 13 kind of took her spot. So my party was Cloud, Red 13, and Sid, because I needed somebody else. Like I just didn't care. None of the other characters I cared about at all. And like in Final Fantasy VIII, that third slot, the person who I didn't care about at all was Irvine. Right? It was Squall. It was Squall. It was Renoa. I loved them. And then it could be Selfie, it could be Quistis. I didn't give a shit. Just pick somebody. And then Final Fantasy X, I don't even remember because I hated that game so much.
So for me, it's fun because I didn't play 6. So I have 2 answers for favorite Final Fantasy party. And that's because there's a modern answer and an old school answer. But old school answer is actually from FF1. And I just liked my original party I played that game with when I first played it.
Let me try.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm gonna say
I was like
fighter.
12,
I'm gonna say fighter, thief, white mage, black mage.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Nope. I didn't know thieves were good. I was a monk.
Thieves were terrible. So, but most people, but the default game gave you thief. Thieves were broken. They didn't work. Oh. So it was the much better choice was the black belt or the monk. Yeah. So
yeah, I was sick. He was freaking awesome. So yeah, I think it was warrior, black mage, white mage, and monk.
Yeah,
was my original party. And it's funny because like I prefer that to any pre FF14 Final Fantasy game. I don't care what party you choose because in the end you're right. Like in the end, especially because when you could start mixing their builds. Everyone was essentially the same by the end of the game fucking anyway.
I agree.
Same spells.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't get... who cares who's in the party? Yeah. But in that first game, it was actually class-based, and the classes couldn't mix, and so you were just stuck, and that was why it's most memorable to me.
Yeah. I mean, also,
modern FF games...
I love the replayability for that, too. Because you could try it with a different, different component.
But for modern games, it's the game you hate most. It's a Final Fantasy remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, that is the game I hate the most.
Yeah. Not Rebirth, because I actually don't like Rebirth that much, but Remake I freaking loved, and it was playing Cloud, Tifa, and probably Barrett. But Tifa is just so fun to play because you're essentially playing a different game when you're playing her because you're playing an action RPG suddenly as opposed to a janky RPG.
You already just fucking lost me. Like the whole reason.
I'm not expecting you to like it.
Like let me tell you one of my favorite memories. Okay. And remember, folks, a $5 tip or super chat will get us off of this. This just tells you how far role-playing games have come. And I don't just mean tabletop role-playing games. I mean console role-playing games. I mean, computer role-playing games. I got, very early on in the 90s, a birthday present, which I wanted, I think. It was a Super Nintendo controller that was shaped and designed to be used with one hand.
Okay.
So it had all the buttons and the joy and the D-pad like right here. Okay. And I wish maybe I could. Let me see if I can find it and I can put it up on the
one-handed Super Nintendo
SNES
controller.
One-handed controller. Oh yeah, we got a picture of it. Okay. Yeah. Sick. We found it. This is it. This is the one I had.
Oh wow.
So let me pull this up. Window capture.
It's pretty fun. It's like a precursor to like a Wiimote.
A Wiimote.
Yeah.
So this is what I had. Okay. This is the one I had. You had your LR and then you had your XY, AB, and then your D-pad. Okay. So the reason and written on this, like on the box, it was like so that you could map on like paper while you're playing your RPG, or you could like take notes, or you could and it literally said this. I can remember this so clear. It was like, don't let keep, for mapping, for taking notes, for eating and drinking. So you're like
not wrong.
So wrong. So your mom, you're playing. You're like, Mom, Mom, I can't have dinner, and she brings you dinner. You're like, can't stop playing. Got to shovel spaghetti in my mouth because I got to keep playing. And And so back then, you know,
Perfect.
you know, that was the thing of the game. And we had a super chat come in. What is this? Not Peter. Not only is this a stream at an Australian friendly time, it's a friendly Australian. So, well, arguably,
this could be you. This could be you. Anybody.
DM Rawlings says that's a better one-handed use than what I was thinking about using the other hand for. Listen.
I mean,
Final
you're a degenerate. That's what I'm saying.
Final Fantasy VII wouldn't come out for another 3 or 4 years, so we had some time. All right, here we go. Wheel of Tangents is up. Spinning the wheel. Thank you for the super chat, Peter. Up. Pathfinder PhD. What makes a meta currency fun or beneficial for a game?
Whoa! I wish Ellie was here for this. She freaking hates meta currencies.
She says nothing does.
All right. To be very clear,
Alia knows what she likes.
Are we putting HP in the bucket?
No.
Or not? Is HP in the bucket? Okay. All right. So what's in the bucket?
The fate points, bennies, do-overs, momentum.
Yeah.
All
right. Yeah. So stuff not tied to the fiction.
Stuff independent of the fiction. I mean, HP, while technically a meta currency, is somewhat theoretically kind of diegetic.
I love how much you tap the tap dance when talking about. I'm fine with HP. I've always been fine with HP.
No, in fact, I was actually defending HP the other day. But yeah, hero points, bennies, fate points, fabula points or whatever. Typically in that respect.
So the question was, what makes them beneficial to the game?
What could make them fun or beneficial? Okay. Or maybe or not. Maybe you could say why you think they're the devil's own.
No, I like them to a certain degree. It's more like it's just like a requirement set and a equivalent requirement set of things I don't like. Meta currencies add something to your game when they give players interesting choices that allow them to pull a different lever than the in-narrative fiction lets them pull. That's when they add to the game. Right. So, but they detract from the game if that new lever they get to pull subverts is broken. Like it subverts the genre that you're trying to aim for in the first place, or drives the game in a direction that the meta currency becomes more important than the fiction. That's like a really general answer, but that's my take on it.
I will say this. So I have different thoughts about meta currency. And in fact, one of the things I have often liked about Powered by the Apocalypse games is they frequently do not feature any sort of meta currency. At the end of the day, despite what people assume about the game, the narrative focus of the game
doesn't have hero points or anything.
It doesn't have hero points or anything.
The closest thing is XP, which is
but I mean that's just setting the standard for how you advance. So I've often really enjoyed that, and arguably Dungeon World 2 might be changing some of that elements because they're bringing in certain elements, like I think from Blades in the Dark a little bit. But anyways,
we have to talk about Dungeon World 2 at some point.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe somebody put on the wheel, but I will say but I'll say this. So I like games with meta currencies. I like games without meta currencies. What you said, though, I think is 100% true, which is if playing the game becomes more about managing the meta currency than playing in the fiction, you've missed the point, because the meta currency should never be what the game is about. It's supposed to be meta, right? It is supposed to support, it is supposed to enhance the core structure of the fiction of the game. And if the game just becomes about shuffling and sorry, John, my main problem with Fate is that every time I've played Fate, the game becomes about fate points, not about the fiction. And that's something that I find very problematic.
So what do fate points do again?
So fate points are basically it's like the only way that you can do anything to resembling getting a bonus. And you spend a fate point, you say why
then
say why
definitely I can see how overriding the fiction.
Say why your aspect matters here, and then you do it. But I think they're really cool. Where I think now different people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. But I fundamentally believe that role-playing games are games, and there's a social contract there that we're all playing games together. And while there are people out there who say, oh, we do this and it's great, I personally don't believe you. or I think that maybe you think it's great, but maybe the people around you don't think it's great. And what I'm specifically talking about here is when you make a decision that you know is bad, but it's in character.
Yeah.
And that may be totally what my character would do. But let me tell you something. I've been playing RPGs a long time. And it used to be forums, or it used to be magazine articles, people writing in, where you had to write in and then the magazine would publish your letter. Then it was internet forums, and then it was Reddit, where people basically have just been bitching since time immemorial about like the lawful stupid paladin. It's what my character would do, has never been an acceptable answer for anything. But meta currencies make everybody go, oh, I know why you're doing it. Like, you're playing the game.
You like that. I hate that. But
so
you
I like that. I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, when we're playing, obviously, I've been playing a lot of Torchbearer. And in Torchbearer, you have traits, and you can use your traits to give yourself a bonus. You can use them a couple times a session, depending on how powerful the trait is. So, your character might be a dwarf, and your character has the Born of Earth and Stone trait. And in order to use a trait, you have to describe how the trait is in this thing. And so the dwarf is fighting underground in tight corridors, and he's like, I was born of Earth and Stone. I've been fighting underground battles like this since I was a young lad. It gives me a bonus to my attack. Cool, awesome. I totally agree with you. Give yourself a bonus. But Born of Earth and Stone might also mean you're stubborn. You don't listen when you're told.
Yeah.
And there might be a lot of instances in role-playing games where people want to play up the negative downside of that. But when you do that, now some people will do that, and then that's totally fine when it has no mechanical consequence. But the problem is, it's like, well, if it doesn't have mechanical consequence, it doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't matter. In a game like Torchbearer, you will take a penalty to your dice roll to highlight how you're Born of Earth and Stone. People are, you're trying to convince this guy, but in reality, you're losing your temper with him, and you start being like, listen, you shit, I don't have time for you, let us through, or we'll just kill you. You go full Gimli, where you just go, how about I just kill you instead? And you earn this meta currency called a check. And normally, if someone was doing that in a D&D game, they would look at you, well, you would either role play and be like, and there would be no penalty. Like, the GM would be like, oh, yeah okay, totally. The DC's the same, roll it. Or he would say, okay, fine, DC's still 15, roll with disadvantage. And everybody else goes, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You're being it's what my character would do. And everyone just looks at you like you're a jerk, because you are. I'm sorry. You just are.
That's okay. I'm going to pause you for a second, though. I don't want to end what you're saying. I'm just going to say,
no, I'm done.
We have different tables. Our tables loves it when that fucking happens, because we know that combat's inevitable anyway. So it's like, oh, great. It's just watching the journey and how do you get to the combat. That's the fun part.
I guess I also don't. Yeah. I also personally don't believe in the idea that, like, it's what my character would do. It's like, no, it's not. It's what you're doing. It's what you're doing. It's what you're doing.
It's so interesting that
it's what you're doing.
Of course, because I made up the character, sure.
No, it's just such an excuse for bad behavior. It's just such a bad. It's just like.
I feel like this is just your low trust nature coming out.
No, I played with a lot. You know why? Most people suck. That's why. And I played with a lot of people.
You're absolutely not wrong.
I've played with a lot.
Because you played in cons. I've never played in a con. Right. So like I've always played with people I know, high trust groups. So it's always welcome when someone does some nonsense for their character's reasons, right? Like we've had people like burn them, like join the enemy to sacrifice themselves to summon a dark god. We've had like crazy stupid stuff happen. We enjoy it because it's a high trust group. Like,
but what you're describing is a little different. What you're describing are like narrative paths and choices. I'm talking specifically about mechanical disadvantages.
Okay, sure.
I
mean, I feel like they're related. They're definitely related, but they're not. I agree they're not the same, but they're related. Because like, so you're saying something like someone is in the position to make a check and they penalize the check and therefore penalize the whole team because they're doing something narrative.
Yes, correct.
I'm fine with that, but I see what you're saying. And so it's like, all right, sure. But
but also
for me, it's like,
when that happens, it's always that one girl. It's always that one guy that does it. And you're all like, because everyone knows who that, you already know in your group who that person is. And it's the same person.
I know two in my group.
Yeah, and it's the same person over and over again. And what you don't realize is that this person okay, is they're just getting off on bringing you along on their microfiction. That's what's happening. Okay, they don't care. Well, no, they don't care about your time and your experience. They think the gameplay is for
you're
them.
assuming that I'm having a bad time though. Like when the guy who's playing, like for me, it's
well, if you're the GM, I don't give a shit. I mean, whatever. You guys can jump down a well. I don't care.
No, as a co-player, like there's one guy, no matter what character he plays, he's always essentially just the angry dude who starts fights. But we know the moment he starts talking to the enemy that, this is going to go badly. So we actually plan around. It's actually in fiction. Our characters have to distract him to keep him away from the enemy, so he's not the one making checks, because we know it'll go. And actually, we play along with it, right? So it's like, I've never had this problem.
There's also something to be said about taking a step back and viewing how extrinsic rewards are occurring in your game. So if you're playing a game where you level up when the GM decides you level up, right, then nothing you do matters. So it doesn't really matter. So in that case, whatever, spit on the king's, face, because you're like, I just decided in this moment that my character's backstory, his father was unjustly imprisoned by the king, and I grew up with a resentment, and now that I'm here, I'm gonna spit in his face, and but because everyone goes, it doesn't matter. We level up when the GM says it's time to level up. And so if you've completely divorced the actions that your characters are taking in a form of success from achieving objectives and goals, and actually therefore advancing in the game, then yes. But if you're playing what I would call a RPG that makes sense and actually has a point to it, you are trying to achieve certain stated goals, whether that be from everything from killing monsters to get experience, if that's like the lowest form of everything, to getting treasure in an old school sense, right? And if you are sabotaging that, then you are sabotaging the forward progression of the game.
See, I don't see it that way, but mostly because I think if you spit on the king, the whole party should die, and then that should be the end of the campaign, right? But so it's a bit different, right?
And then everybody, and you know what, and then it's like, and it's like reading on Reddit, and it's like, and then it's like, and then all the players got up and clapped, because they were all like, you know what. You are so right. That is exactly what your character would do. And I think I applaud the GM for having the king summarily execute us and end the campaign that we've been playing for the last 9 months, because that's what your character would do. And you know what?
But
I am happy to throw my body on the sacrifice of your character's fucked up microfiction. Okay. And
I will point out that if those are the stakes, then it probably wouldn't get to the point where the character does that to the king. That's what I'm saying. If there's stakes along the way, I find that's less of a problem. I don't really have but going back to meta currencies though, like what you said earlier, I don't necessarily mind. Like one of my favorite things I saw in Monster Hearts is when you get XP for doing things your character would do, or the sheet says your character would do.
Yeah.
Right? So like venturing into the darkness, making a bad choice, like that kind of stuff. I really like that carrot. That's a good use. It's XP in that case, but whatever. It's a good use of meta currency to give people carrots that help them connect to the character. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, was when it enhances the fiction, I really like meta currencies. Go ahead.
I was just say, everybody here, let me be very clear. All I'm saying is, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? Like, I want people to make bad decisions and good decisions. All I'm saying is, when they make a bad decision that we all know is hurting the group, why not throw them a little bone? And in fact, by throwing them a little bone, what gets rewarded gets repeated. I'm actually encouraging you, to do this. And I want you to make these kind of decisions that are quote unquote bad.
You go to Super Chat, but it's not a wheel spin.
It is not a wheel spin. Technically, it's $2.
Which lets me finish my point.
But you can finish your point.
So
thanks, Jack.
Someone else in the chat, Omrid said this. I don't quite fully agree with this, but it's a good statement.
Wait, let me find it so I can bring it up. This must be meta currency bad. Is this one? Yeah.
So meta currency bad. When you need the currency to properly play, and at worst need to actively try to get them. Meta currency good gives an opportunity to add to the narrative of what you're doing. I think that's mostly right, and I think that last part of adding to the narrative is what I really like meta currencies. Another way to look at it is what hero points do. It essentially lets you affirm the narrative as you want it to be, but with still a chance of failure, and that's essentially what a hero point does. it's very light on touch, which I also appreciate. But and a flip side of this, a very powerful meta currency. One of my favorite meta currencies you've described is actually from Mutants and Masterminds, where the GM can go, fuck it, no, he gets away. I love that. It's a huge effect on the narrative, but it's earned, and there's not many of them. Like you can't just do that every time, every scene.
Ultima points and Fabula Ultima work, kind of the same way. Where not only the GM can spend an Ultima point and then basically say the villain gets away, I think, or two Ultima points. But whenever the GM spends an Ultima point, every player gets a Fabula point, right? And spending Fabula points also gets you experience points. So it's a very benefit. Like you want the villain to run away because that'll get you more experience points. And it'll get you more meta points, right? It's buying into the emulation. I mean, I'll put it as simple as I can. We're all nerds here. I'm sure we've all watched at some point in time or another something resembling, HEMA, historical martial arts, or people doing like realistic LARPing, like, but they're actually fighting with weapons. Okay, if you want your RPG campaign to be like, okay, I'm a fighter, I've trained my whole life, you're a fighter, I've trained for life. Oh, you're dead. If that's what you want, cool. But if you want anything resembling anything that you've ever read or seen in a movie, right, where Captain America has been beaten down to within an inch of his life, tightens the strap on his shield, and somehow now goes and beats the final villain, even though he should be at his absolute weakest, this is the worst time for him. If he couldn't beat him when he wasn't beat to shit, how is he able to beat him now? And people are like, oh, he's got grit and he's got gumption. No, he doesn't. He's got motherfucking meta currency. Okay, that's what he has. He has meta currency. Yes. Okay, you're watching meta currency in action. So anytime you've seen someone do something cool, that was meta currency. Whenever you watch something, you go, that was lame and disappointing. That was real life.
Yeah.
So,
because essentially it's the author spending meta currency to enhance the fiction and make it the way you want it to be, rather than how it's going to play out with the dice.
Yeah.
On that point, though, we spent a lot of time on good meta currencies. I am curious because you know more systems than me. What's some examples of some really freaking awful meta currencies?
Bad meta currencies?
Yeah.
Hero points from Pathfinder 2.
I don't entirely disagree. In fact, I'd raise you one. I think inspiration's even worse.
No, see,
I was gonna put it out there.
Why is inspiration worse? Why do people hate
Because
inspiration?
you have to pick before you roll. You roll.
That is terrible. Okay, I'll buy from that. No. Oh yeah, you have to pick before you roll, but it gives you advantage.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that. Like the use of it is very bad.
It was fucking awful. And to explain is because you're spending a freaking meta currency with no guaranteed result, and potentially a result worse or the same as what you started with. That's why we don't like.
So Skelpie is talking about Apocalypse Keys, and I'm going to guess you don't know anything about Apocalypse Keys. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, but it's very revolutionary in what it does. So, you ever see it's the movie? It's a comic book, but they made a movie of it with the guy. He's all red.
Doctor Strange?
No, he's all red.
Iron Man?
Nope. He's like a devil. He's like a devil.
Hellboy.
Hellboy. You ever see Hellboy?
All right.
You ever see Hellboy?
Yes, the Hellboy one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen him. Okay. So this was the primary inspiration for this. So you know how most PBTA games work, right? You're rolling 2d6. You're adding your stat or modifier or whatever it is.
Yeah, they're awful. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
In Apocalypse Keys, the idea is that your character is like Raven from Teen Titans, right? Or Hellboy, where you're like, the prophecy Dark Prince, but you're but you're like rejecting your lineage. Like you're destined to destroy the world. But you're like, no, but I love these people, and I've come to care about human. I really love a good hot dog, or whatever reason. You are basically fighting.
You're the Dark Phoenix, Jean Grey.
Yeah, you're destined to be evil, but you're trying to do the right thing. So in this game, when you make a roll, you don't have stats per se. So when you're rolling with plus nothing. But you can spend these points. I think they're called like shadow points or doom points. And each point you spend gives you a +1 to the roll. So instead of having a permanent +3 bonus to strength, you'd have to spend 3 shadow points in order to get +3 to your roll. the way you acquire shadow points is by sort of like doing the sort of dark things that your path or destiny would call you in to do, right? And so it's kind of this idea of like, if you want to save the day, you kind of have to be willing to like kind of sell your soul a little bit, you know, and kind of like, because your powers are ultimately rooted in darkness. You know, you're trying to use them to do the right.
Into the darkness to get power to do this. To
do the right thing, right? So you know, I don't know. It'd be like the equivalent of like a vampire, like going like, I don't want to, but I, you know, there's a great scene in the Blade movie, right, where you know the first one with Wesley Snipes, and he uses this serum.
The only good one.
Yeah.
Maybe this.
No, the second one was good too, but the third one was terrible. But he uses this serum instead of drinking blood, right? And because he won't drink blood, and then in the final scene. Right, he's been bled out, and he's forced to drink blood, and you think he's going to kill the girl he's drinking blood from. It's like his love interest or whatever like that. And then of course somehow now that he's drinking the real thing, he's like more powerful than ever, and he just goes and kicks ass. He completely heals to full. Somehow all of his equipment appears back on him. His sword appears out of nowhere, and then he flips down and with a ninja flip, and he goes into the final mode.
All right, the equipment I didn't notice. That's a fantastic observation. I fucking love it.
No, seriously, in the scene, I wish I would pull it up if I could, but I could. But he doesn't have his equipment on him because he was actually being like kind of crucified. He was being he was being exsanguinated. He almost kills the girl, and then he has to fight his mother, who's a vampire, kills her. And then now that he's a super vampire, and then he goes frost, and it cuts real quick. You see him running. He like grabs his backpack or like his vest, and then the next scene is him flipping through the air off the ceiling with the vest on, and he's fully equipped, and he's just totally good to go. Oh, Sketchosaurus, don't tell me I saw that movie like 10 times in the theater. It was one of the first night I saw that movie. It was one of the best movie-going experiences of my whole life.
It's great. I freaking love that movie.
But yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, you're right.
Wait,
you're right.
What were we talking about?
Oh, I don't know. We're
talking about
metacurrencies.
dark metacurrencies. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So Brandon says that would take at least a full round to put your armor on. That's being generous. Most RPG systems, it's like this takes 45 minutes. All right, Smendon coming in with a tip.
Smendon tipped $5. This is a lovely way to spend my time in work. Time to move on to the next spin.
All right, he says this is a lovely way to spend his time at work, and go on to the next.
Time
spin.
to move on to the next spin.
Yes, sir.
You mean you didn't want to go deeper into Blade, the movie?
Could have done that. All right. Ford Prefect. Switch to talking about how PF2 does this thing, but not as much and worse.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's kind of not fair because we were just talking about how Pathfinder 2 does metacurrency very badly. And to be clear, to respect, we'll do another Smendon because we literally just talked about this. But to be clear, so that we're the reason Pathfinder 2 things are bad is because number one, the rules are like you should give them out when people do things that are heroic, but like once an hour. So wait. Which is it? Number two, everybody starts with one. So it's like, off the bat, you're just like, all right, I guess we all get one. Number two, you just get to roll again. Like, it's just like, you get to use it afterwards, but then you could roll worse. Which is somehow the most, it makes you feel worse than when you had missed the first time.
Absolutely. The look on people's faces when they roll the same or worse is just like,
it's
not.
What
are we doing here?
The juice is, yes. What are we even doing here? The juice is not worth, I mean, because everybody dreams, right? When people I talk about all the time, TTRPGs, okay, is lost. I'm just aware. That's why I go to Las Vegas, right? TTRPGs is just gambling. Okay, for people who don't have money or somehow think casinos are wrong. Everyone's like, oh, no, I have a hero point. Of course, it's always if you start like really emoting, that's when you know you're fucked, right? That's when you're like, no, this will not be our end. I stand in defiance of you, Lich. Your evil necromantic powers will not be able to defeat me. I am a paladin of Seren Ray. I bring the light of the dawn flower, and today you will meet your end. And then you roll in that one. Like it's like without question.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah, the universe conspires for that to be how it plays out.
yeah. Meanwhile, the asshole who goes, "Oh, hero point," nat 20 every time. Like it just doesn't even. It's just like immediate. Now, so anyways, and that is why
and the only one
Derek hero points exist.
Yeah, and I use them to this day for my systems. Anyway. The other one is it uses Pathfinder 2E just quickly is victory points, and I don't hate them, but I don't love them either.
Well, victory points are literally just clocks.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't like them, because they don't give you the communication tool. Yeah. They just give you the mechanic, and it's just like, how do I communicate this as players? It's just suddenly where I'm trying to get them to be in the fiction and investigating or running down streets. And then after every check, I'd be like, well, you gain 2 victory points. So it invalidates everything that just happened, and everyone just realizes it's all just fucking dice rolls. It just like kills the fiction side.
Yeah, it's, you know what? That's why I play Powered by the Apocalypse in games, because it's all about
spin the damn wheel again.
But real quick, Elia says, my solution was to give each of my players 3 HP at the start of the session because I couldn't be bothered to track time to award them. Then I died a little more every time that they got used. All right, we'll spin again.
It's a very Elia way to do that.
Yes. All right. From Shu, what style of art do you like?
Oh, shit. That's an interesting one.
Well,
all right, we need to bound this. We need to bound this.
Well, I think like, within well, okay. I mean, if we're talking genres, I love Impressionism. Monet is one of my favorite. Monet is one of my favorite artists of all time. So I love Impressionism. I love watercolors. I love watercolors. There are some fantasy artists, particularly Rebecca Guay, Guay, who does watercolors. She's done TTRPGs. She's done a lot of Magic cards. She's one of my all-time favorite artists.
Yep.
I like, I like a classic Elmore Eastleigh, just classic D&D art.
Oh, okay. I was like, where are you transitioning to? I just looked up what my favorite art style was, but anyway, go on.
It's not. I don't know what really style that is. I guess it's kind of like illustrated realism. It's just like because it's an illustration. It's clearly a drawing. Like it's probably painted. Yeah. It's probably paint. Yeah. But overall, I mean, obviously, I don't like anime. We know that. Right. But I also don't. But I also kind of like, I know it's weird, and I don't like anime, but I do like the Final Fantasy style of art.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not anime to me.
No, it's more, like, it's essentially sketch.
A lot of it is sketch, but even some of the stuff, like Smith has some of the Final Fantasy 14 art books, and those are like gorgeous. Those are great.
Yes. Yeah. I think we should bound this question in a different way.
Okay. Go for it.
For the quick answer, apparently my favorite artist, which is Joseph Mallord William Turner, so JMW Turner.
Okay.
He's an unacademic approach art. I don't know what the fuck that is, but there you go.
Okay.
But to bound the art in a different way, if we were to rank, there you go, Dungeons and Dragons editions and Pathfinder editions, because they're essentially the same fucking game.
Okay.
What is the tier list of art between editions?
Ooh. Oh, so that's a cool way to do it. Okay. So
yeah.
Well, 4th edition and Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2 kind of all get lumped together because those are all just Wayne Reynolds, everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4th edition's kind of fucking hideous, and so is Pathfinder 1 and 2. Right. So I'm with you.
It's like how much leather do you want? All of it. How much? It's like how much pointless accoutrement do you want? All of it.
Yes. Yes.
I was originally.
So is that D tier, F tier?
I used to be okay. So let me be clear about something. I used to. There is one instance. I've talked about this before on the channel. I think I put it away. There is one instance where I like Wayne Reynolds' art. I think it's cool for Eberron.
Okay, yep,
and I think
yep,
that's
I can see that.
I think that's a really cool use of it. And that's
I
kind of
didn't mind the thaumaturge either. Just like that one.
no. See, the thaumaturge looks like he's like when he walks, he's like
huge.
ching, ching, ching. It's like I hate
like
that
that,
art.
though.
I hate that art so much.
I hate it in most instances, but
but originally I was a fan of the 4th edition art style. And Wayne Reynolds was we're a big fan of mine.
I mean, you were kind of the right age at the right time period.
Correct. I was I was in my mid 20s, but so we just got that's a find a classic piece. Characters like this.
I fucking hate it.
It's very World of Warcrafty. The characters all have these huge pauldrons, this very, like, look at this wizard. Like, this looks like something that's some sick molten core raid gear. It's very, there's no element of realism, in this art at all. That being said, this book does have a copy of one of my favorite pieces of art of all time. But I grew up on 2nd edition, So here, this this book has a really cool thing that they do in it, where they show like a monster, and then they show the art. Oh, cool! Here we go. Look at this. They got Eberron. It says, in my opinion, Wayne Anthony Reynolds is the defining artist of Eberron, said by Keith Baker, the guy who made the game. So there you go.
Okay, sure.
It's this kind of pulpy action flick, comic book. They even did a lot of the books in a comic book style, which I thought was really, really, really cool.
I also thought they were hideous. But I like the thing about those art is I like how dynamic they are, but I just hate how everything about the way it looks.
Yeah, it was.
Tier it. What tier is it in? D, F?
Not F. It's D tier.
All right, I agree.
How about we do this? We'll do this. We'll so this is okay. This you'll have to look at my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
So these are orcs over the years. Okay, so you got orcs in the original edition of the game. Okay, then you got 1st edition orcs. 2nd edition orcs.
Yep.
3rd edition orcs. At the bottom here, you have 4th edition orcs, and then at the top you have 5th edition orc.
Oh God.
So which orc?
I usually like 5th edition art, but that's fucking terrible.
So which orc do you like the best?
Yeah, like I said, it's inconsistent, but I would say I like 2nd edition.
Yes, I think I like 2nd edition over these orcs as well.
Yeah.
4th isn't bad.
But that's the thing. I feel like this is an unrepresentative sample because the 4th is actually pretty good, and the 2nd edition's pretty good, and the fucking 5th edition's fucking awful. Whereas in reality, I think 5th edition's art, especially with the remaster, is actually is gorgeous in a lot of ways.
All right. We'll go for a classic. Okay, we'll go for a classic.
Oh my gosh! There we go. This is closer to what I remember.
So, we have up here. We have the 1st edition owlbear.
Yep.
And then we have the 2nd edition owlbear. Then we have this beautiful monster right there. That's the 3rd edition owlbear. This one right here, that's the 4th edition owlbear. And then this one up top is the 5th edition owlbear.
The famous 5th edition owlbear.
Now, which one is your favorite, and why is it 3rd edition?
Oh no! Again, it's 5th edition followed by 3rd.
5th edition looks like a kitty.
Yeah.
Like what? No, I don't like that. The 5e.
It's gorgeous. No, it's just beautiful art.
Okay, we can all agree that the 4th edition one is not great, but like, and obviously, obviously the first edition one is struggling. Here's the thing:
it's a different monster. What the fuck that is not the same thing.
It's supposed to be an owl bear, not a bear owl.
Oh no! Let's be clear. If you took the 3rd edition shape and you put the 5th edition's color and detail on it, it'd probably be the best.
But see, I like that. Maybe this is what I like, the impressionism of it. I don't like the 5th edition art is too clean. It's too.
Okay, now we're getting to it.
It's too digital. It's it's just so precise. I just don't like it. I like it.
Of all RPG art, my favorite art is still probably L5R, and I think it looks like 5th edition art more than it does like 3rd edition.
No, L5R art is very impressionistic. It uses oil paints and watercolors.
Yeah, but it's like so precise as well. Like all like the tiny little details and. I guess it's between the two. I guess it's there. You go. It's the best because it's between the two.
Yeah, all right, I'll buy that. But generally speaking, if I had to say something, so we actually let me show you. My favorite piece of art, of course, is from second edition Player's Handbook. It is the
What's this book here? So this is like D&D art through the years. Is that where?
Yeah, this is art. This is Art and Arcana, a visual history.
Yeah, you showed
of
the
Dungeons
cover
and Dragons.
before, but I thought you were just looking at the cover. Yeah, okay.
But my favorite art, which I don't know if they have in here, maybe they have it in index, is Dragon Slayers and Proud of It, which is also Smith's favorite piece of art, and it's actually what I gave him as a gift to celebrate 30 years of friendship. I got it a professional. What's called a G Clay print made from Larry Elmore, and then I had Larry Elmore sign it at Gen Con, and then I got it professionally framed. But so it was that was before I lost my job. I don't think they have it, but what they do have is Todd Lockwood did a lot of the art for third edition. So he did most of the iconics and a lot of the interior art. Todd Lockwood did a piece. I'm sorry, not Todd Lockwood. Todd Lockwood did most of the third edition art, but there was another artist named Michael Cormack, and he did a piece called The Caves of Chaos. And this was actually in a very less known book, which is Player's Handbook 2, not fourth edition, the third edition Player Handbook 2. There was a piece in there called The Caves of Chaos, and it is a reimagined art piece of the original Caves of Chaos, which of course is from B2, Keeping the Borderlands, but it's got the third edition iconics. And it is...
Oh, that's beautiful. That's fantastic.
This, to me, is what D&D is about.
Yep. I agree.
Everything that I want Dungeons and Dragons to be is in this piece of art.
I'm literally working on a TTRPG system, and that is pretty much what I want my cover to look like.
Right. This
Something
to me
like that.
is it's the unknown, it's the thrill of the adventure, it's these dungeons, it's this party of adventurers. They're heroic, but they're not superheroes. I mean, look at them. They're just wearing they're wearing real armor, like they have equipment. It's one of my favorite pieces. It's from the Player's Handbook 2.
Well, it literally does encapsulate like why I play, especially the mystery, because it fades into the fog as well. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So that is, and then kind of on the opposite side, let me see here.
Beowulf is catching up 4 minutes behind. First he says, Wayne Reynolds' art is trash and it infects players' minds and sours the game experience. Which I very much love. It's a very good quote. And then he says, the 2E and 3E owlbear, and I do not know how you could pick the 2E owlbear in any world. In any world. 3E I can get behind. 2E is just like, what the fuck is that even?
All right.
He'll hear my responses when he gets there.
I'll buy from you. There we go. Let's see here. Open image in new tab.
Are you bringing up that
I'm trying
piece you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to. But
I see a lot of 5E owlbears in the chat. I agree with all you guys. Derek is wrong.
No way.
Alia says she definitely she prefers more precise styles, and I agree because she's right.
So, all right, cool. I'm gonna bring it up here.
There you go.
So this is Dragon Slayers and Proud of It, and this to me is
got it. Yeah.
So this to me is like after that other picture, like the first picture is, okay, we're going into this unknown adventure. And this is this group of actual human looking like people, like look at this character. Someone's like, oh, what's this person wielding? Like a D3 club? It's like, no, this is a Warhammer. Okay. Warhammers don't look like whatever the fuck Bob thinks they look like. Right. If you look at the art for Azius, his Warhammer is like the size of his character's
the size
torso.
Of his torso.
Yeah, it's the size of his torso, This, what this weapon is right here, probably? A great sword. Like that's a great sword. Okay, that's what a great sword actually looks like, okay? Anyways, but they've killed a dragon. They found a box of loot. They've come out with bags of treasure and loot. I like it a lot. So in any case, I like that sort of realistic groundedness while still having the fantasy element. So
this goes back to your like EverQuest 3E or intersection period of your life. But for me, it's very much like I move with the times, you know. As the years progress, my tastes change with them rather than just fucking forever being stuck in this one mythical period of my life.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because I was gonna say, like, if going back to the video games question, the Elden Ring art style, the Dark Souls art style, that Japanese influence on Western art, that's kind of what I'm moving towards, and I'm really loving seeing more games, modern games, embracing a bit more of an Asian aesthetic. The Fabula Ultima, obviously, because it's a bit drawing for Final Fantasy, but I really like the art in Fabula Ultima and stuff. So I like that moving forward.
Just so we're clear here, a long sword, okay, was typically in excess of 4 feet long. You think that sword that in that piece of art was in excess of 4 feet long?
Oh, well, okay, no. So the chat's right. A real great sword is about as tall as you are, maybe a little bit taller. So that's not a great sword, but I knew what you were going for with your statement.
Okay.
Realistic weapons. So that was probably a bastard sword or a hand, like a long sword, kind of around that size. But I spent too much time with swords a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I was never. I mean, I thought they were cool, but I never really. I mean, I used a lot of long swords in second edition. You know what long swords did in second edition?
What?
D8 damage.
Okay, yeah, sure. They've always done D8. Well, have they always done D8? I'm pretty sure they've always done D8 damage, right?
They
Throughout
did
history.
but they did D12 versus larger creatures. Weapons did different damage dice against bigger creatures.
That's interesting.
Yes, in second edition. So it did 1d8. It did 1d8 versus
was that
small
a
and
nod to
medium.
simulationism, or was that just balance?
You know what? I have absolutely no idea. And it's not like if you're using it two-handed thing. No. Longsword was a one-handed weapon, but it was D8, and then you felt like a badass when you got to roll D12. Some of them went up, some of them went down. It's just
All right. So since we're between tangents at the moment, I want to finally go back to dungeons.
Right. That is actually the default. When we're not talking about tangents. But long story short, I will just say this: my favorite art of the genres is definitely second edition and third edition.
Okay.
My next favorite genre, my next favorite set of art is probably first edition. I love the classic style. Then probably fourth edition. Then fifth edition is actually my least favorite. I think they're
too precise for you.
It's just it's too clinical. It's too and especially in the new player's handbook. There's some beautiful pieces in there, but there's no.
Can you bring up? You probably be able to easily find this. Can you bring up the monster manual art on for the new 2020 whatever fucking 5.4 monster manual? I'm just curious what you think of like the Beholder, for example, or like if you just Google
Beholder D. No, if I want to do this, I have to put DND because it doesn't know what D. Goes. You 24. Is it this thing? It can't possibly be this thing.
Oh, okay. You will see.
Hold on a second. It can't possibly be this thing.
You should see a red beholder on top of them, some stairs, laser beaming people at the bottom of some stairs.
All right. Well, do you see it on stream? Because
right. Sorry.
This is fucking horrible.
Yes, that is it. That is exactly it. Yeah, I was just curious what you thought.
This is horrible. Horrible.
A long time ago, before this monster manual came out, they had a stream where they went through the art, specifically about the art. And I remember specifically requesting you to watch that stream.
Meanwhile,
I wanted you to react to exactly that stuff.
No, meanwhile, you got this bad motherfucker right here.
That looks great. Oh, okay. No, I was thinking of the blue image you see.
That's the third edition one.
Yeah. Now I was talking about the blue one, which was that one on the left.
Oh, I see. DD
I like that one.
Beholder. Yeah, there's the original. There's the OG. Again, now granted, like I said, the fourth edition ones all were very Wayne Reynoldified, right? But
yeah.
Anyways,
so my tier list is all right. S tier, nothing hits it. S tier is L5R. There's nothing in there in that tier. A tier is probably probably nothing as well. B tier is 5th edition and 3rd edition. I'm just going to put them in the same tier, but 5th edition is the top of the tier, 3rd edition is the bottom of the tier, and then C tier is every edition that I haven't talked about that isn't 4th edition, and D tier is 4th edition.
Okay, fair enough.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Dungeons.
Dungeons, yeah. So again, remember, everybody, $5 will get us to go off on a tangent, but the default topic is actually talking about Shadow Dark and dungeons and a bunch of other stuff.
Yes. You asked me at the start of the stream.
Yes, a long time ago.
Right. So I was bringing up why the impressions of dungeons, and I mentioned the fact that when you first asked me, I was like, oh, I hate dungeons. So you thought I hate dungeons, and actually I love fucking dungeons.
Right.
And the reality, so I ran Pathfinder 2e, a conversion of Tome of Annihilation for Pathfinder 2e, and it was one of my favorite things I've ever run in my life. I essentially took the really death. So first of all, I put a curse. So these are the kinds of things you have to do to make fucking dungeons work. I had to put a curse on the dungeon to nerf healing. So as the moment you walk into it, healing's far less effective. Then I had to do all this fucking math. It took me about 3 months to build the dungeon. Just to hit that sweet spot I was talking about before, where you don't kill everybody instantly, but it's very difficult, but at the same time, like it's a realistic threat, but it's not necessarily an instant kill. That level of tailoring took about 3 months to build that dungeon. Then we ran it once for about 2 months. The players loved it, and I've never touched it again. I will never do that again. I will never put that much work into a fucking single area, probably for the rest of my life, unless I'm designing something for my system or whatever. But
well, yeah, if you're getting that kind of juice to squeeze ratio, I don't blame you. But also, I think you're designing, right? You were designing your dungeon with an outcome in mind. Whereas
a feeling I wanted it to invoke. Yeah.
Well, whereas for me, obviously there's certain core assessments or core understanding that I don't, that I take into advantage, right? Which is like, I'm not going to put a level 8 monster on a level 1 dungeon, because then it wouldn't be a level 1 dungeon. But I might have a level 8 monster on a level 1 dungeon if it was like stuck in a stasis field. Right?
Yes.
And there was like a runic pattern.
Steps to unleash it.
Right. And the players can make a sort of decision point. But everyone's like, no, we will not talk about dungeons.
Door tip $25.
We done enough of that already.
Door says tangent time. By the way, just as a funny follow-up before we spin the wheel. Thank you, Door, by the way. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Before we do this, I did get a comment the other day where it was like, somebody said, enough with the dungeons. Please do less streams about dungeons. It feels like your whole channel has become focused on dungeons. And while I think that's totally fair, we've been talking about them a lot lately. And it's just because I've been building a dungeon for Torchbearer. We talked about that. And then this like, oh, you should make a dungeon for Shadow Dark. And then I was like, I will never have the time to do that. And then like literally the next morning, I'm not even kidding you, the next morning I got fired. All right, laid off, whatever they call it. My company decided to get rid of a third of its workforce. So then it was like, oh, Derek.
I think it does count as 5 tangents back to back.
Lightning round. But anyways, it's funny to me that people would say that, because it's most of them are playing Dungeons and Dragons. You would think.
I don't.
And Steven Glicker from Roll for Combat says nothing is more popular than dragons. And he's talking about like everybody. He's like everybody. He's like
off dungeons.
He goes. You want to do? He's like our dragon. Our dragon ancestry book is the most. Our most successful ancestry book. People love whenever you do dragons in a monster manual. Oh, it's a book of dragons. It always sells like gangbusters. But where's the dungeon representation? That's what I want to know.
Another.
We got some Australia New Zealand hype from the AGM. What's up, Jace? There are some great pieces in the 5.5 monster manual, but agree that the beholder is vomit. So
Dungeon ancestry, get out of here.
All right, so we've got
on board with that.
We've got a couple spins coming in. So we're gonna do some spins from Door, and then we're gonna do a spin from AGM.
Changes their state of mind. You're not wrong.
Ooh. Sarek. Top 3 stories in any media. What are yours?
Whoa.
Are they good for RPG inspiration?
Wow. I'm gonna let you wait. Okay. Do you have an answer? Because I can probably answer this pretty quickly. But
I could throw this down real quick.
All right. What do you got?
Most people here should know what they are already, but
Is Lord of the Rings one of them?
Lord of the Rings is one of them.
Yep. No. I'm not gonna tell me what they are. What do you got? What do you got?
All right, fine. Well, if we're just talking books, okay, like if we're just talking
any medium.
Okay, if we're talking any medium, but if we're talking, well, okay, fundamentally it is probably all books, but for me it's number one is Wizard of Earthsea, number 2 is Lord of the Rings, and number 3 is Conan the Barbarian. And I don't actually really mean the Robert E. Howard. I mean, I think some of his stories are really cool, but there's a lot of other authors who kind of wrote under the auspices of stories of Conan, including Robert Jordan before he wrote Wheel of Time. And I think some of his stories are my favorite. And that sort of covers the sort of really gritty high fantasy epic of Lord of the Rings, this really like kind of like transcendental, very naturalistic fantasy of Earthsea, and then the sort of grim, gritty sword and sorcery of Conan the Barbarian. So those are my 3 primary influences from a media perspective. If we're gonna throw some movies in there, I would throw in Star Wars, Star Trek, and because I hear the question again: is it the best stories, or is it the best for RPGs? Well, I said, what are your media that has influenced you think, and are they good for RPGs? And I would argue the whole genre is built off of what I just described. So yes. Although I will say Lord of the Rings and Conan and Earthsea all have very soft magic systems. And by and large, that has not been embraced by the modern community. In fact, the modern community loves Brandon Sanderson because they're like, it's so hard. Oh, Brandon Sanderson, please get me with your hard magic. And I'm like, oh God, I could care less. Because when you boil magic down to a science, it's not magic.
I can see that argument. When I was dabbling in authorship, I had this argument with a lot of fellow authors, and you're right. A lot of the people feel like that. I mean, look, you're wrong, obviously.
Yeah,
it's
of course.
Still magic.
Yeah.
But,
no.
I get what you're saying.
No. At that point, it is just a form of technology.
Okay, are rivers a form of technology?
At that point, it's just a form of technology. What's that?
No, but are rivers a form of technology?
No, but a water wheel is.
The fact that rivers have rules does not make the river a technology.
No,
just because the magic system has rules does not mean the magic system is technology.
No,
it's scientific.
No, because
is gravity technology?
The rules that you are
defined.
The rules that you are prescribing only matter when you start to think about how are you going to interact with or steal from that river, use that river, because that's the only time that those rules apply, is when you start trying to use the river as a tool.
See, I would counterpoint and say, in Lord of the Rings, it just hasn't progressed far enough that people have made a science of the magic yet, and then exploit the science. So there probably is some kind of
you just described electricity.
Yes,
which is not.
That's how I feel about magic.
Which is not magic.
That's how I feel about magic. Right. The point of magic is that it's not a fundamental force we have in our reality. It is a different. It's literally mad. It's a different fundamental force that they have access to in the fiction. We're not going to get into this. But I see where you're coming from. I just disagree.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we don't know. No. I know we don't fucking know.
Right. And I do want to answer this. Yuval says, Derek, don't you like playing wizards? Of course I like playing wizards. They're broken as shit, and they can do a lot of fun stuff that you can't otherwise do if you're a boring ass melee character. I like playing wizards in D&D precisely because it's like technology, right? I get to do all the cool stuff that lets me break it. But I like playing them from a game perspective, right? Like they do cool stuff in the game. Not like this is mythical and ethereal and I'm really feeling the flow of magic as I, use a wall of stone to create a deadfall that we're going to pour grease onto somebody. But, it's just crazy.
I hate the system, but I will say Dungeon World probably does Magic in that way the best, which is the ritual.
The ritual system. Yeah, exactly. I do agree.
Which I very much love.
Yeah.
All right. So my top 3 stories. It's weird because like, also kind of books, but for me it's the Lord of the Ring movies, not the books. I think the movies are better than the books.
The movies are very good, and there are things about the movies which I think are better than the books. And I say this is one of those weirdo nerdos, like I said, who can speak certain phrases in Quenya. But Peter Jackson did an incredible job.
Yeah, no, and it's mostly the editing. Like I just think the editing was beneficial. The Wheel of Time is what my favorite fantasy series of all time. And
are you watching the show?
Absolutely not.
I have heard that the 3rd season was
got better.
Incredible. No,
Okay.
not just good. Incredible. I guess this
I'll never watch that show.
now again. I guess they're completely like, they'll get the timeline because apparently they go to Ruidian like before he pulls Kalendor from the Stone of Tears, which obviously didn't happen because he went to Ruidian in Shadow Rising. But but apparently that entire sequence was apparently
it's a great sequence.
But apparently
especially
it was
they did the visions and stuff.
Right. Apparently they did the visions like super well.
Fucking cool. That's fucking cool. That's fucking cool.
I
I've done this one before where I just watched a couple episodes from the whole series. Like I've done that.
Because I tried watching season 1. I watched all of season 1, and my God,
I remember you and Ben gave that a freaking. You gave that the old college try, and I was in the chat going, "I'm not even going to bother," and I was vindicated.
Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like Perrin kills his wife, and anyway.
It's like what the fuck is happening?
Right, but
the last one is go ahead.
Yes, Lord of the Rings movies. Wheel of Time novels,
and then the Dresden Files.
Preface this: Wheel of Time, all the novels, like even like 8, 9, and 10, like.
No, that's the question was so open ended. It's just the best story, right? So yeah, I would say the Wheel of Time is my favorite.
It gets pretty slow there.
It is awful. Like the middle, everyone
Crown of Swords,
through it.
Winter's Heart, whatever the one that's after Winter's Heart, Path of Daggers,
the whole Egwene series, and
Path of Daggers, and then
fucking all this stuff with the fucking weather vessel. Like, the middle is bad, but the rest makes up for it, in my opinion.
The first 3 books up until the end of The Dragon Reborn. Like that's incredible. Like that's like some of the coolest. Those first 3 books are just awesome.
Just amazing. And someone mentioned Supernatural season 1 in the chat. I'm going to play that sideways. I'd say the Dresden Files, which is a series of books that started in like the 90s roughly, inspired a lot of the modern. Jim Butcher, it was actually inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but it's not set in a high school.
So let me tell you how Jim Butcher did me dirty. Okay, I have no interest in Dresden Files. I don't like urban fantasy, and I don't like fantasy. I don't like mysteries, and I don't like urban fantasy mysteries and Dresden Files. All that. However,
it's like everything you don't like. It's also a dude in a trench coat with.
It's everything, and this is the classic. This is the classic. Derek gets fucked because this is why I don't watch shows anymore. And then now I've just gotten out of the habit and I just don't watch them at all. But now I got to the point where I said, I won't watch a TV show until it is complete. Like until it's 8 seasons.
I respect it.
I'll wait until they have a final episode. Tell me if it's good.
I'll wait 15 years. Till
I'll wait
done,
15 years until it's done. But however many years ago, I was going to say a couple years ago, but it was probably like 10 years ago now. I got hooked by a cover and a premise, and I picked up this book. I didn't really realize at first that it was the same author of the Dresden Files, Jim Butcher. It was called The Aeronauts Windlass. And it is book 1 of the Cinder Spires.
Steampunk. Yeah, he's steampunk series. Yeah.
And I don't know that he ever made an. I don't think he ever made an.
Oh, did you like it?
Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
Oh no, there's 2 sequels now.
Oh, is there?
There's an in-between book and there's the actual sequel. Yeah.
But did he finish the book series?
Oh no, he hasn't finished the series. But he's kind of young. Like he's not going to die anytime soon unless there's something crazy happens. I think he rides bikes, so you never know. But
apparently, there's only one sequel.
Well, there's an in-between novel.
I don't care about the in-between novels. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So then there you go. There's one sequel then.
Okay. Yeah. It was released, by the way, 2015. So I was right. It was 10 years ago. Okay. Apparently, the Olympian Affair came out last 2023, but I guess it got published real late. So last year. Okay, so there's a second book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's got you.
No,
Jim
but
Butcher
no, I'm
is
not
legit.
waiting. No, I'm not waiting 10 years again. I'm not going to get George R. R. Martin. I'm not going to do it.
No, I respect that. I haven't read. I refuse to read Game of Thrones because it's not finished, and I don't think it's going to finish.
Oh no,
I'm sorry,
not.
everybody. It's not going to finish, so I'm just not going to read it. I couldn't be. I know. I'm with you. I'm actually with you on that crazy idea. On the point of RPGs, though, I think all three are bad for RPGs. I think Lord of the Rings is bad for an RPG. I think Wheel of Time is bad for an RPG, and I think Resident Evil is bad.
So does that mean you fundamentally are opposed to all of these Lord of the Rings RPGs?
No.
Behind me?
Oh yeah, the Lord of the Rings RPGs. Yes and no. I think I'm going to asterisk, right? Because they asked if the story was good for an RPG. And I think that if you tried to play any of these in an RPG wouldn't go that way. So it's awful. But if you ask me if the world is good for an RPG, then I'm kind of with you. Like Lord of the Rings is just a generic fantasy world. So what we call generic now was inspired by Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that. So, that is kind of.
Yeah. So we could call it a generic, but really in reality, it's pretty much Tolkien. A Tolkien fantasy world, sure, and a Dresden fantasy world is essentially Buffy. And a Wheel of Time fantasy world sounds sick. Like that's sure. Like you have fucking magic and you have Trollocs and you have fucking all. Essentially just like
they made a third. They made a third edition Wheel of Time game for D&D 3e.
Oh,
the classes were.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there were two classes. There were one class was a channeler, I think, or something like that, and the other class was called a wilder. They could both access the one power, but it was kind of like different.
Got it. Yeah.
And then you had
the warder probably
a soldier. No, like warder was a prestige class. Like Aes Sedai was a prestige class. Gleeman was a prestige class. Like all like the
Gleeman's a prestige class.
Yeah.
Okay. Just fucking, but that did not need that. You didn't know that. You need to hype up Gleeman.
Gleeman were. They made you think that they were going to be really cool, but
I need to point out we have 5 tangents to go.
No. He said he only wanted one.
Okay, so we have one can.
So then we have alternate GMs then. I was like, I wanted to look this up here. Okay, here we go. All right, so the classes are: you could be an Algai de Sisui, the Io Spear people. You could be an armsman. You could be an initiate. That's like you're like a member of like of like Aes Sedai or Ashaman. A noble.
Yeah.
A noble.
Okay.
Wanderer, wilder, or woodsman. Those were the classes.
Okay, I can see that.
And then the prestige classes were like Aes Sedai, Ashaman, Blade Master, Gleeman, Thief Taker, Warder, Atha Anmayir, Windfinder, Wise One, Wolf Brother.
Yeah. I have to say, just hearing the name Ashaman, like Ashaman Kill is one of the fucking coolest scenes in any book ever fucking written. Like, oh my, even though that was in one of the quieter books, it was so fucking amazing. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And yet, well, no, wait, wait, I can't remember. Did you shit on the Dragon Fang or the Flame of Tar-Valon? Oh,
Flame of Tar-Valon.
Right. You didn't like the
Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai always fucking suck. Except for when Rand says, I was an Aes Sedai 3,000 years ago. That was sick. That's fucking cool. I was like, but before, that was so baller at the end of that series when he finally integrates his memories. On the top points, though, just quickly before we skip tangents, if I was to pick books that would be good for RPGs,
yes,
that's a different list. Right? So it would be stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So you'd have everyone, because it's an episodic kind of show. There's no real overarching plot. There is, but not really. And everyone can play.
Every season has the big bad guy, and then Buffy kills him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And similar with the Mistborn second series, which is a Brandon Sanderson series of novels, because it has that magic system with rules which you can translate to an actual RPG mechanics. It's got 5 different kinds of metals that you can, well, not 5, but many different kinds of metals you can draw from that each give you specific kinds of powers. That gives you a class system. And so there's a couple of stories out there that are very good that I would say that are good for RPGs, but it wouldn't be Lord of the Rings or Wheel Time and that.
All right. There we go. All right. So LP Curio came in with a tip. So we're going to do one for LP Curio. But first, we got to take care of alternate GMs tangent. So thank you both of you. Let me Did I close my? I may have accidentally closed the wheel of names.
I don't think any generic
we
fantasy
go.
worlds are like Middle Earth. They are all haphazard. Yeah. Okay. Beowulf. What I meant was the societal concept of a generic fantasy world is essentially Middle Earth.
All right. Here comes alternate GMs. And we'll do LP Curios. Ooh, from Obvious. Your scariest in real life animal encounter. Well, Vin, you're from Australia, so is that like every day for you, or how's that work?
That's a hard question. Well, it's because like it's the opposite, right? Because you're so used to dangerous snakes and shit. It's just not. They're not scary at all.
Right.
It's just like whatever.
Whereas mine is definitely a snake.
All right, give me yours, and I'll see if I can think of mine.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Ohio. Well, okay, I'll give the real one, but then I'll give like the one that it probably should have been. Okay. I grew up in Ohio. We don't really have like really dangerous fauna, here. Nothing I would really ever be worried about. But when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, I hiked in the mountains for 6 months, and I saw black bears for the first time, but those didn't actually scare me. They were, they're big, but I'm a big guy, and like they were mostly afraid of me. They'd like run away from me, and like that. But in Pennsylvania, I was walking, and then there was like fucking like, it was a sunny day on the rocks, and there was like 5 rattlesnakes, and I was like, and they were, and I was like, and they were just letting me know that they were there, and I just went around them, and it was fine. But I mean, that scared the shit out of me because like I grew up like just like so afraid of the rattlesnake and being afraid of the rattlesnake, and like I knew that the rattlesnakes were in that area.
Yeah.
That being said, where I should have been the most afraid was when I was camping in Maine, and I was that's northeast United States, because I forgot we're European audience here, so this is all the way in the northeast of the United States, almost up basically by Canada, and I was camping with kind of by myself. It's called stealth camping. So, and I woke up in the morning, and I didn't think it was that close, but it was so big. I guess it might have, the distortion was messed up, but it was a moose, and like moose are like really, like they are
huge.
They are deers that are the size of cars. I mean, that's literally how big they are. They are so massive, and they can, especially the bulls, the males can be very, nasty and territorial. And I thought it was so awesome. It was kind of out in this like kind of swamp. It was in this
moose.
It was in this swampy area, and it was kind of just munching on like the vegetation there in this kind of shallow bog, and I was just like transfixed by it. But apparently I should have been, pretty scared of it. But no, for me it was definitely the rattlesnake. The black bears didn't scare me. The porcupine I encountered did not scare me, but the rattlesnakes did.
I feel like porcupines don't really scare many people.
Probably
in general.
But the moose could have. All right.
For me, I've never met megafauna in real life.
No.
Well, I've driven past bison, but
okay.
like not like out walking around, because we don't have megafauna in Australia. Like someone was mentioned in the chat, we have little things that kill you, like spiders, snakes.
Define megafauna.
Jellyfish.
You don't have like lions, tigers, bears? No.
Really? We have the biggest thing we got is a kangaroo.
Well, that's not predator,
kangaroos
is
just
it?
like, no, it's not. It's just a fucking.
What do kangaroos eat?
Grass? Well, insects.
What about crocodiles? That's
so yes, we do have crocodiles and megafauna. We do have them, but they're not in our area, and actually in very few areas. Near population in the States. I think there's like a couple of cities that have a bit of crocodile things. I would be fucking terrified. Let's be clear. I would be fucking terrified of a crocodile, because that's just like, if you're scared of snakes, they're not the same thing, but one's far more terrifying. Go ahead.
What about the jellyfish that can instantly kill you?
Yeah, no, the jellyfish that's the thing about the jellyfish, right? Because you can't see them.
No, I don't know. I live on a freshwater lake.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have
when
jellyfish.
You're in the sea, you cannot see them unless you've got snorkeling goggles on and you're actually like under, like looking on the water. We can see the bottom half, the top half. They pretty much blend into the waves. So you get jellyfish warnings depending on the season, and then you just fucking don't go in the water. It's more just like that simple. Like if you see it, you're either lucky or you're dead. That's kind of how it is with jellyfish. So there's no real fear there.
That's a very
like the fear is don't go in the water. That counts. You don't really feel scared. You just don't go in. No, it was for me. I have to rewind time because I've been so desensitized to like snakes and all that kind of stuff. To when I was a kid, when I was in India, because I've got a two classes joined together. I'm Australian, but I'm Australian Indian, right? So when I was in fucking India at like 5 years old or whatever, I was next to I was in our house in India, which is in the forest, and I was next to a crib, which was like a family friend's baby was in, right? And no shit, a cobra comes into the window and like goes into the crib while I'm standing next to it watching it going, what the fuck? And I just get frozen in fear. And then I'm just like stuttering. And then a adult passes by and there's just this flash as we were evacuated and like 5 men came and all tried with sticks and tried to fucking kill this fucking cobra. It was wild.
Yeah, that beats my snake story. Yeah, India doesn't fuck around, and you're like from like the two. You're from like the two like scariest horrible places.
Yeah, but nothing big.
Nothing big. Okay. Yeah, mine are. Well, the snake wasn't big, but the moose was big. The moose was very big. Again, I didn't think the moose was that big. But because I was like, oh, it's not that big. But then I walked over to where it was, and then I realized that it looked that big from where I was standing far away. How big that thing must have been. I was just, it was crazy. All right, yeah. Good stuff. All right, next spin. This is for let me bring him up here. This is for I think this is for LP Curio. All right. We made some good progress here. Genzo, a lot of movie questions. What was the last non-fictional movie you watched and enjoyed?
Oh, wow.
Well, I don't watch a lot of movies these days, so that is a tough question for me. And I guess non-fiction, does that include real events that were sort of
I was
fictionalized?
The same. Yeah, are they fictionalized accounts?
Yes.
Do they count?
Well, no, so I saw a movie, like I love NASA, I love the moon landings. And I saw a movie. I mean, now it's been years, but maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But it was called First Man. It was with Ryan Gosling, and it was kind of like a fictionalized retelling of the Neil Armstrong moon landings in Apollo 11. Yes. And I thought it was really, really, really good because it added this like human element that's usually missing in, say, like documentaries or stuff like that. As far as like non-fictional movies, I don't really watch them much as like a documentary because I watch a lot of YouTube, and I watch a lot, and like I think some of the best programming is going on in the YouTube. So from science content creators, and you mentioned Brandon mentions PBS's Space Time, even though that guy's really hard to follow. Same thing with like same thing like with like Number File and a lot of those other places, which is all pretty good stuff. But I'd have to think about it, but
yeah.
I don't even know how many. Most of the movies I've seen in the last couple of years, honestly, the only movies I've seen, I'm not even kidding you, are the Marvel movies. And the only reason that happens is because when they come out, it's just a thing that me, my buddy Ross, and Matt, aka Matt Burl Bevington from our Rise of the Rulers, we have a thing where we go see the movies. We've been watching, been going to the Marvel movies for 30 years, or whatever, how long they've been coming out. And we just, it's one of the things. So even though they've been terrible, right? Even though Love and Thunder was terrible, and Quantumania was terrible, and The Eternals was terrible, and Black Panther 2 was terrible, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was okay, but like blah, blah, blah. Even though they were all terrible, we go to them. So that's like most of my movie watching. And I don't own any movie services or streaming thing or anything like that. So yeah.
It's interesting because I literally just watched one. I'm just trying to figure out what it was. Crap. There's this movie about this boxer, this South African boxer, and it's about apartheid. That is like, again, a fictionalized account where it follows this kid. He's a white kid who ends up being raped, but he's raised by an old man, but the old man was German in time of World War II, and then he goes into prison because he's put in internment camp because he's German. Meanwhile, the kid goes along with him into prison, but he just kind of like stays next door to the prison and visits every day. And he learns how to box. Amazing movie. I just don't remember the freaking name of it. But that's it's kind of like a boring answer. The even though it's a really good movie, it's an interesting one because I watch documentaries, but they're not documentaries that are like, they're not like your mom's documentary or your dad's documentary. I love this series called Missing 411, which is about mysterious
I'm already out.
disappearances.
Oh, I'm so
mysterious
uninterested.
disappearances around the US.
Why don't you?
I'm
so out.
I freaking love conspiracy stuff, which is so good. It's so fun.
You're so trash. You're so trash.
I accept it. I take your criticisms.
You are such a basic white bitch right now. Like with your love of true crime podcasts.
Oh yeah, no, Power of One. Beowulf's got it. He has it in the chat. That's the South African movie. The most recent but that's not the most recent. That's just the most. That's the boring pick. My actual most recent is Missing 411, the UFO Connection, which is about.
You know what? I take it back. True crime is at least better than this because true crime is at least something that it actually happens. So actually, you know what? I apologize to all the basic bitches out there. It's just...
Lost Lord Lodge is cool. Hey, all right, we got people in the chat. Love you, you my people. Yeah, so it's about disappearances which happen to be at around the same time as UFO sightings. That's pretty much what the whole documentary is about. And yes, it's a documentary because he goes around and interviews people and they're real life witnesses. There you go, Derek.
I'm so disappointed.
Hey, I gave you a serious pick and the actual pick.
I like to actually learn from these media, and I like to read things that are or watch things that are going to educate me and increase my scope and breadth of knowledge. So, anyways, all right. Well, we made it to 2 hours, so it is 6 a.m. here. So, not classic Derek thing. But we'll probably start to wrap up here a little bit as we sort of move in. We did manage to complete our tip goal to support Australia and New Zealand, so representing. So,
oh, hey.
So that's sick.
Nice. I do have a question for you, Derek.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. All right. Back to dungeons, by the way.
Okay.
But, all right. So I asked you in the Discord and in personal chat, what the fuck's your plan with this whole dungeon thing?
Okay. Yeah.
So
do you understand? Do you know the backstory?
Yes. So you were talking with the girl, the Shadow.
Yeah, I was talking with Kelsey and Roll for Combat. Steven had Kelsey on, and I know Kelsey. Well, I know Kelsey, but I've met her a couple times at cons, and we've gone to a couple dinners. So we have a relatively friendly acquaintanceship. And she was on, and she was doing her Kickstarter rounds for her new, basically, hex crawl, Western Reaches, it's called. And Steven started saying something about how it's so funny, like dungeons are so dead. Everyone was doing dungeons. Now everyone's doing hex crawls, and hex crawls are the new hotness, and dungeons are dead.
I fucking hate hex crawls.
Kelsey actually said something which I thought was really, really, really good, and we could do a whole thing on that. But she basically said, she's like, I think everyone does hex crawls wrong. And she says, I think hex crawls, and it really resonated with me, because one of the things that used to define the success, this is how I define success in an RPG campaign. And essentially at the time that when I was doing this, that meant D&D. But the way I defined success of my RPG campaign was, how often do my players discuss the campaign amongst themselves between sessions? If the answer is never, that campaign is going nowhere. And so some of my most successful campaigns have consisted of the players, essentially scheming and plotting and planning and strategizing between sessions. and keeping that fire going.
And they're invested.
And so, anyways, Kelsey said, I think hex crawling was never supposed to be like during the session. I think it was supposed to happen like between sessions. And it was supposed to sort of be this sort of procedural quasi game element that then got you to, the dungeon. And then or the adventure site, let's call it. And then you would get to the session and you would actually go do the thing that, is exciting and cool. Anyways, but
interesting.
I put a super chat in there and I said, long live the dungeon will never die. I'm like, now I'm just going to, and then somebody said something and I super chatted back and I was like, I will prove this. I will make the best Shadow Dark dungeon of all time. Or something. I will make a Shadow Dark.
Now here we are.
And so then people were like, patrons were naturally like, Derek, you were talking about that. That'd be kind of cool. Like, how would you do that? So then I made a stream called Project Shadow Deep, which was a joke because Smith had made when Shadow Dark did its $1 million Kickstarter, Smith was like, what the, all these games, like, what does that even mean? And so he made this D10 random game generator. It's like how to create $1 million Kickstarter. And like the left side was like Shadow, Umbral, Gloom. And then the right side was like Dark, Deep, like Rift, and you could just roll randomly to create the new $1 million Kickstarter because that's all of it meant. So Shadow Deep was like my idea of like this, of this mega dungeon, and I did it, and I said like this is my high level scheme, and then people were like, you should definitely do this, and then Glicker goes in, he goes, you need to do this. He's like, I'll help you publish it. Like you could do a killing with this. And I said,
I agree with Glicker.
And I said, there's no way I would have enough time to do this.
And
then the next day I got laid off.
And the universe conspired. The universe itself said, well, we can solve that problem.
And so then it was kind of like, wah, 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 wah. But
when has the world given you a clearer signal? That moment.
No, I know that moment. I've talked about this before. I was like really not loving this is my job from a long time ago, and I was really not loving my job. And then I was like cleaning out my office, and I opened up this binder that had been there since like the 90s. And there was a bookmark. Someone had shoved something in the pages, and it said, "Have you ever dreamed of hiking the Appalachian Trail?" It had been in there so long that like when I opened it up, it was two-toned because the one area had been bleached completely, and the other one was like this vibrant green, and the top part was like completely white. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is such a sign." I'm like, I need to leave this job, and I need to go hike the Appalachian Trail. And so I did.
You did.
And I did. But
this is the second time in your life the universe has come out and touched you.
Yeah, but I think it might be. I'm not even kidding here. I think it might be easier for me to hike 2,600 miles over the course of 6 months over up and down mountains and lose 7 of my toenails through get blisters on every aspect part of that thing, poop in the woods and have to bury my own shit, than actually publish something. And actually get something down. Because as people know of this channel, they're like, Derek, but you could talk for hours. and I can write for minutes. Like writing is so tough, Brandon. Writing is so tough. George says, Derek, you know that if you wrote your own hex crawl, you just make a stream shit canning all the stuff about it you hate 12 months later. Absolutely. That's the other reason I can't design anything, because I make something and everyone's like, dude, this is so cool. I'm like, this is so terrible. I'm like, the juice squeeze ratio here is so bad. It's so bad.
Yep.
It's so bad. And I'm like, why would anyone play this game? And they're like, because it's cool. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. You're being deluded. And it's because I want my game to be elegant and I want my design to be elegant. Well, no, it's not about perfectionist, John. It's not about perfectionism. It's about avoiding mediocrity, I think there's a lot of mediocre stuff out there, and I'm not saying that I need to get 100 out of 100, but I do think that like,
I feel like you won an 80. You at least won an 80.
I say this, and I'm not saying this out of pride. In fact, I'm actually saying it out of not pride. I'm actually saying what's the opposite of pride?
Humility?
No, like being down on yourself.
Oh, okay. I forgot the word for that, but there is a word for that.
But like, if I made something and it didn't get like an Any nomination, it doesn't have to win the Any, but if it didn't get an Any nomination,
wow,
I would be.
Is that where we're at?
I would be crushed. Now you might say, Derek, that's so vain. I'm like, no, but that's why I haven't done it, because I know in my heart of hearts that what I produced wouldn't get an Any nomination.
But you realize that almost most people get the Any on their fourth or fifth product, right? Not their first product.
That's not always true.
Not
by the
always
way,
true.
by the way, I
That's
don't need
why I said most
no. Winning, maybe. Nominating, no. Some people,
Okay.
right? Some people catch lightning in a bottle, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
know why it's called
Brandon.
catching lightning in a bottle?
Brandon, I'm exactly thinking of when Kobe was being interviewed, right? And they're like, what's there to be, why don't look happy? What's there to be happy about? Well, you're up 3-1. Job's not finished. Job's not finished. That's right. That's the Mamba mentality. That's exactly right, Brandon. You got it right. George, to be clear, I don't actually care about winning an Emmy or an Any.
No. He's talking about the quality level and the recognition.
I'm talking about I want to create something like I know it's a very complicated thing to understand. Like, how many books? I'm asking you all. How many Kickstarters have you kickstarted, and books that you've bought, and they've just lived on your shelf?
Oh,
You know?
yeah, straight up.
You know,
Yep.
you flip through them and you went, this is kind of cool, and you don't like regret buying it. I guess, you know, you're happy to add it to the shelf. But like, if that's the fate of my product, then I would rather just not make it. You know.
But wait, how many people have to play it before you'd be happy though? What if 25% of the people buy it, play it?
You know, I don't know what that number is, but it's some conceivable number, you know. But like, and I can tell.
You know
this is how I know I'm different. This is how I know I'm different. Okay. And again, I'm not throwing shade on anybody here. Okay. But I'm not gonna name names, but I'll just say that there are some people that I happen to know who have done very successful Kickstarters, and they could care less if anybody plays their game because they got their coin.
Yeah.
They got their money.
Oh, do you mean the money? Okay, sure. Yeah.
And while I should care about the money now, because I kind of don't have a job, RPGs, are such an important game, or genre of game to me that I definitely want that to be, something that I'm,
I shout out to the tactical tip, the tactical super chat. Sorry.
Well, no, technically we had a $2 tip earlier super chat, so this takes us over the $5.
Oh, it's $5 total now. He's adjusting the rules.
Yeah, that's right.
To get off grilling Derek.
But John, thank you. He says, whether I'm building or making, my number one goal is to create something I can be proud of. Problem is my pride can be quite fickle. Well, so that's another thing. Because you might think, well, Derek, so you can never create anything. Not far from the truth. Like when I made furniture, obviously I was very methodical about it. And I was very, Bob even joked. He's like, I think you spent more time designing the table that we built for the studio set than it took us to build it, which is probably true.
Yeah.
But for me, though, the focus was on usability. And so, you talk about creating something I can be proud of. Yes, I mean, that is definitely my goal, but it's about being proud of every, component that goes into it and really feeling like this is my best work, not just something I'm like phoning in. All right. We got a wheel spin here as we wrap up. As we wrap up. Thanks, John. Yes, we've gotten through like 11 or 12 of these.
Yeah, quite a few, yeah.
Oh, Dor, Dor, you get your own one, get fixed. All right. When playing a new TTRPG setting that isn't a generic European fantasy land, what is your strategy for helping players make or play characters that fit within the unfamiliar setting context? Wow. That's tough.
Oh, well, let's be very clear here. He pulls out fantasy genre. But I feel like you kind of have to call out, like strike off all the standard genres. Because if you're playing Mothership, everyone knows how to play an aliens person, right?
Right.
Um, if you're playing Starfinder, the art tells you what you fucking are. Like you're a space ranger. I think it's like more like those weird RPGs, like Monster Hearts, or maybe not even Monster Hearts. That's pretty obvious. What I'm trying to think of, like one that has a weird.
Yeah, well, touchstones, I mean, are the way to go to, and
Yeah.
the problem is, and the reason why I say touchstones are part of the problem is, like, let's say you're sitting down with me to play Legend of the Five Rings. Now I could say
That's a hard one.
And I could say, well, this is more like heightened elements of samurai. It is not trying to be an accurate depiction of what samurai life was like in Edo or period Japan. All right. Number one, it's fantasy. Number two, it is a samurai drama simulator. So go watch the collected works of Akira Kurosawa. Well, most people aren't going to go do that.
Exactly. It's hard.
And you know what they're also not going to do? Read anything. So my suggestion is that you create a one-page primer that highlights what you think is particularly interesting about the campaign. And don't focus on the details. Focus on the questions. Like if I was telling someone about Legend of the Five Rings, there's a temptation for people to go like, okay, let me tell you the entire history of the Empire. Let me tell you about the seven clans and the Empire and the destruction.
God.
That's how you lose people instantaneously.
That lost me immediately. It's like, whoa, nope.
Okay. But instead, if you phrase it as like, this is a world where honor is stronger than steel and where every samurai is expected to live up to an impossible code or standard. But at the end of the day, they are just a man and a woman. And they have the same wants and desires and passions as you or I. How do you reconcile those two in a society that expects you? Like you if that question isn't interesting to the person reading it, then they're not going to like Legend of the Five Rings. So you need to figure out, one of the reasons why when we do the first looks, I always say, like, the first thing is, what is this game about? What are the questions that this game is answering? That's why that's so important. Because with trad RPGs, you could say, what is this game about? This game is about playing role-playing games. Like, that's what this game is about.
Yes.
Right? Like that.
That's my favorite kind of game. I like that game you just got right there.
It's like D&D, like that's
Yeah,
and you can use that for damn near almost half of the games out there. But I have a lot of games on my shelf that does not work. That description does not work. So you have to really, have an idea of what are the questions that you're trying to ask. Like Torchbearer, I would tell you that this is a game where, and I've described this on the streams where I said it's a triangle of needs. You need to get treasure and money to live. You need to survive in a dangerous dungeon environment. You must follow your beliefs and live up to your ideals and achieve your goals. How do you do all three? Because sometimes they're going to be in opposition. Sometimes you have to make the choice. Do I live up to my beliefs or do I take the cash? Right. Do I take the safe road or do I risk it to achieve my goal? Right? Like, so how do you balance those things? And a good GM will create situations where there's never an answer that goes check mark, check mark, check mark. It's like you can have it, what is it? Fast, quick, or good or whatever, or fast, quick, or cheap or something, pick two or something like that. So it's the same way.
Fast, good, or cheap.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, fast, good, or cheap. Fast, good, or cheap, pick two. So it's the same thing in Torchbearer. It's like, well, you could do something that's safe and makes you a lot of money, but you're probably betraying your ideals. You could live up to your ideals, okay, and make a lot of money, but it's probably going to be dangerous as fuck, and so, that's the premise of the game. And again, if that you're like, oh, well, that sounds really uninteresting to me. I really just want to like kill monsters and level up. Okay, cool. Not that game. So
interesting. So, because there's kind of two halves to the question, right? Because for me, I run genre fiction. I love genre fiction, and that's what I run. So I never have a problem with getting people into the mindset and hyping them up to play. For me, and that's the part of the question you addressed, which is how to get them interested in playing. But the other half of the question, which is kind of unsaid, is how do you get them to create a character that fits the world?
True. That's tough.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, well, going back to Legend of the Five Rings.
Yeah.
If somebody sits down and they're like, yeah, I want to be a dwarf cleric, named Bumpo Hammers a lot. You you're set.
I'm sorry, buddy.
You're
But
setting
what if he
yourself,
really cares about his honor?
you're setting yourself up. I mean, sometimes you got to roll with the punches. Like, for example, when we played Legend of the Five Rings, the idea was that all of my players served the same daimyo, and this daimyo wasn't like the daimyo who like ruled the clan, right? He was a lower tier daimyo, and at some point he had a name. It was Matsu Cicada or something like that. That was his name.
Yeah.
But they just started calling him Lord Middle Management, right? Because they're like, at some point Smith was probably like, oh, so he's like a middle manager, he's like, he's the regional director, he's the store manager, he's the assistant store manager. So he's Lord Middle Management. And, in this game of intense samurai drama, nobody, they'd be like, who is your lord? And Aaron would be like, Lord Middle Management, like you could never remember the name. But I find that there is no serious RPG survives contact with a real adventure, with a real PC party. No, it just doesn't.
No way in hell. Yeah. No.
But I mean that is tough. Like, how do you get them to like make genre appropriate characters? It's tough. That is tough. Tough.
My friends who are new BGMs really struggled with this. Because they had newbie players as well, and so it was like a totally new group, which is again, this speaks to the popularity of 5e and just how much that's spreading like wildfire or was. But yeah, no, I didn't. And they made like a orc sorcerer and all that stuff. If you picked up a book of what not to make, that's what they made, and he didn't know any better.
Right.
And like all their stats were wrong, and they're terrible at everything. They kept dying, and it was until we discussed how to do I'm pretty sure he took out death. And that's how they made that through that campaign. I suggested that, and he did it. It's tough. And I
have a cheating answer.
Yeah.
So my cheating answer
might be the same as mine. It might be the same as mine.
My cheating answer is collaborative world building. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because
all right.
Because if maybe it's not generic European fantasy land, but if you take a session or two, to follow, there's a lot of different, we've done videos on it, we've done streams on it, there's a lot of systems out there, but if you sit down, there's some systems that even include this now as part of their game system, but if you sit down and fundamentally build the precepts of your world together as a group, and their input helps shape the game, and they were there as the game is being created, well then of course they're not going to be an orc, because they're very much aware that orcs are tainted by the demon blood of the Dark Prince, because I was the one who put that in. And so they're going to know your world because they were there,
Yeah.
It's like what Aslan says to the witch, do not speak to me of the ancient law or the ancient magics. I was there when they were written. So
good.
It's the same idea, right? So collab world building is fantastic at not just getting players involved, but also they'll be like, they'll know the details of your world as well as you will, which I think is huge.
Can you cheat on that cheating answer? I.e., can you do collaborative world building where the players bring their ideas, but you bring the core ideas from the book?
Yes, I think that there's pure collaborative world building, but then I also think that there is directed collaborative world building. Where as a GM you are laying out the foundation. Not to be super nerdy, right? But it's like Eru Ilúvatar in Lord of the Rings when he created the universe during the Ainu Lindale. He gave an idea or a theme to each of the Ainu, and they sang a song that kind of was part of this grand plan, but they had the free will to sort of add their elements. But at the end of the day, it was all part of the creator god's master plan. So I think that you can do broad strokes and do broad outlines, especially as a GM. Like, I don't know, let's say that you're like, I know the orcs are bad guys. And so it's like, that's part of my core idea of this world setting. You could be like, okay, so at some point the orcs go bad. What happened? Were they born bad? Were they born bad, or were they good? Were they corrupted? Like, what happened? And someone's like, no, I like the idea of them being corrupted, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, are they all corrupted, or is it a like, is it a societal thing or is it a magical thing? They're like, I really like the idea of it being a magical thing because I really want to kill orcs and not feel bad about it. I'm like, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, you know.
Yeah.
So you can guide it.
You shape it with your guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You know, and
my answer is a different cheat entirely.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is just fuck it. Let them come up with how they want to play or the mechanics of the character, and you sit down with them one-on-one and just make the character together. That's how I do it. I don't care. I don't care about your weird facey sounds. That's how I do it. I was like, fuck it. I know the lore. You don't. I'm gonna walk you through what your choices mean in the lore.
But what is that? What does that mean though? Like,
what do you mean? What does it mean?
I feel like that's just like your weird way of like making the players participate in your microfiction again. Because you're like, this is so, I can't believe it.
I'll phrase it to you a different way, right? I've only ever done this for when there's an existing campaign and someone who's entirely new to D&D joins.
All right, that's fair enough.
Yeah, because they don't know what D&D fucking is. So I'm like, okay, so you're an orc. This is what orcs are about. And it's like, oh, this is, yeah. And I just kind of walk them through what their choices mean in the world and then I introduce them to the campaign. So fuck you. It totally works. But your answer is definitely the more elegant solution.
Okay. That's fair.
There you go.
I mean, yes, sometimes practicality wins out, right? And there's also, I mean, I'm aware that there's a non-zero number of players out here. If you're like, hey, everybody, like, I really want to play this game. You're like, cool, come over. We're going to craft a world together. And you're like, what? That's not what they do.
I hate it. By the way, I fucking hate collaborative world building. I've always hated it.
You're like the worst person alive. Like, what is it that you,
I want to be surprised by your world.
Surprised by my world. Surprise is so overrated. It's so overrated.
No, it's literally all I'm playing for. Like half the reason I play, the other half is solving interesting problems with my brain. But the first half is surprises and interesting new situations that I've never seen.
So you want to be surprised by the GM's microfiction, is what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. I love playing like Call of Cthulhu is a classic example. Where the GM has there's a plot that's unfolding and it's up to you whether you solve it or not. And if you don't, that's fine. You die.
But you're like, ooh, I love that. Ooh, read the book to me. Like when I was a little kid, just read, you know.
Well, think about it this way, right? Like put the mechanics aside because I know you get Fabula points for this. But when in Fabula Ultima, when it switches to the enemy scene and the GM tells you what's happening, I fucking love that stuff.
Absolutely, but Fabula Ultima is no prep. So the GM is literally reading the beats from the moment of the story, you know, like from that. It's not like he's got something pre-planned out and he's just like, now I'm going to do this. The whole idea is that you have a low prep.
Is your problem with this the pre-planned part?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that part.
Yeah, I do.
Actually, if anything, that adds to the quality of what I'm hearing because like half people suck at making shit up on the spot. Whereas I'd actually get something remotely sensical if you did pre-plan it.
But I also point out that this is why I talk about not just the guiding from like a GM has an agenda, but also like a lot of times just giving players a choice, a guided choice where you're like, pick A or B instead of being like, pick anything. But, if you just say, hey, we could have it be this way or this way, which would you like to see? Which is more interesting? And they can just go with that,
Yeah, and I still hate it. I don't maybe do even fucking work for you. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to go into the city and be like, oh yeah, there's the dungeon I put into the city. I fucking hate that. It's happened before. And it's like, oh yeah, I wonder what the mystery of this dungeon is. Is the thing we talked about before we fucking started playing? Oh, what a surprise. That's the mystery of the dungeon. Fuck you.
See, but you know what? I think you've hit something here, which is really interesting. Because I don't care about the mystery of the setting.
Exactly. That's the difference between us.
Right. What I care is the unexpected or unexplained choices that we make about our characters and how that ends up playing out.
It's the same reason you don't like mystery games. The same reason you don't like Call of Cthulhu.
Right.
So it's you for you. It's the emergent mystery as you play.
Yes, the emergent. Yes. Do you know how Brindlewood Bay works?
No.
Okay. So this let me see. I'm gonna pull up the move just so I can get it completely right here. I was like, you're gonna lose your mind. Okay. So in Brindlewood Bay, do you know the American show Murder, She Wrote? You know?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So imagine Murder, She Wrote. Okay. But it's like a group of old ladies, and they're like part of like a mystery book club. Okay. Those are your PCs. And but the town they're in is like, but instead of like, old man Smothers was trying to collect his wife's, it's like Cthulhu, like dark terrors are coming from the game. Okay, so the way it works is you acquire, for lack of better words, clues. Okay, and then when you have an open, so this is the move. When the mavens, that's the women, have an open, freewheeling discussion about a solution to the mystery, once they have gathered a number of clues equal to at least half the mystery's complexity and reach a consensus, roll 2d6 plus the number of clues that they incorporate into their theory. On a 10 or higher, your solution is correct.
Oh, fuck you. I fucking hate it. What the fuck? That's some whose line is it anyway bullshit. I was so on board with this whole system until that. Fuck that. What the hell?
Yeah. So the mystery is, so the GM,
whatever you say it is.
But let me put it this way though. As the GM, you're putting in the clues.
Yeah.
Right.
It's still whatever they assemble with the clues.
No, but that's just the thing. As a GM, I can just put the clues in, and I don't even have to figure out what they might. I might not even know how they're tied together.
Oh yeah.
It's up to you as the players to come up, and you know that, but you're like, okay. So the furry costume, right, that we found covered in blood, okay, was because they were secretly wishing they were a werewolf because of the Twilight Book Club. And everyone's like, yes, and you're like incorporating all these things, and then you're like, all right, you somehow managed to work all 5 clues into this crazy ass theory.
It's a +5 modifier.
Roll 2d6 plus 5,
almost,
and you get a 10, and you're like, yes, you're right, it was that.
I fucking hate it. I hate it so much.
That's a mystery game I would play. That's a mystery game I would play. That's a mystery game. That's a mystery game I would play. I would play Brindlewood Bay. So
I'd play it maybe, but I wouldn't. That part I'd hate. I'd play it for the rest of the game because I just do really like everything else about it. But
So, anyways, the chat's great. Alias says, that sounds awful. John says, crowdsourcing mysteries. George says, you create a narrative and roll for it. That's the fun. Yuval says, I'm with Vin here. LP Curio says, fun with quotation marks.
Yeah, I like when there's there's a thing happening and I need to uncover it. Especially when it comes to dungeons and stuff or mysteries in like investigation games and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And it goes back to that question before. Elden Ring, the reason why that's one of the biggest franchises of all time, like the Souls games and Elden Ring, is because they are essentially an action mystery game. Because you don't know what the underlying plot of the world is, and you discover that as you play. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
No. It is true that it is not a mystery game, and I think it's unfortunately presented that way, and I think that's a mistake. Brindlewood Bay is a creative writing exercise, right? Like you are working together in a collaborative writer's room approach. You're rolling dice as sort of like a way to, have instead of just literally being able to write whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You're using dice and the GM to sort of, throw curveballs your way. And then the challenge of the game is, how can we as a group figure out a way to tie these 5 things together? Have you ever played? I have no idea if this is how they created this game. But have you ever played the game Codenames? It's a board game.
I've heard of it. I haven't played it.
So the way Codenames works is there's a grid of 25 words, and like 11 of them are the blue team's words, and 11 of them are the red team's words, and they're just random words.
Yeah.
And you have to give a clue to your team, and it's only one word. And then but the team that can answer all of their code names first wins. So what you do is you tell them the code, the one word, and then you tell them a number. And that number is how many the things should be tied to that one clue. So the goal, you could say, tea, like coffee 1. And then someone goes, oh, it's probably mug. And they point to mug, and you go, yep, that was it. But if you do that, it's going to take you at least 11 turns to get all 11 of your clues. So the good players figure out a way to tie 3 completely random things into one idea, and then they say something really clever. And, so someone might go like clown 3. And someone starts going like, okay, clown. They're like, well,
there's wig.
And they're like, yeah. You're like, oh, look, like clown car. Okay, clown car, clown shoes, and maybe tent, and like it's kind of like camping. So maybe it's like the camping, and you're like, okay, we're gonna pick those 3, And if you get it right, it's like that's amazing, like that's incredibly awesome. Yeah. Anyways, so that's what that's like. It's like playing code names.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say it's like,
and Codenames is considered one of the best games of all time. So just FYI, as a party game.
I feel like that's not true.
One of my, by the way, I feel
that's not true.
One of my favorite memories of all time was playing Codenames with Ross, Matt Burrell, Matt from Last Light, and Bob. And Bob was pass out drunk. And, and I don't know how good Bob would have been sober, but he was not good drunk. I'll tell you that.
So yeah, I was gonna say that the Brindlewood Bay sounds like it is only 2 steps removed from Fiasco. That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh, it's like there's a very strong Fiasco element to it as well.
Yeah, and my pseudo realistic question or jokey question to you is, what's the GNS score of Brindlewood Bay?
The GNS score of Brindlewood Bay is very high G, very well, even higher N. Yeah, like almost 0 S.
Yeah,
but what's interesting though is these games. It occurs to me that when people are talking about I want to solve the mystery, what you guys are talking about is we both want to beat the game. It's just what the game is different to you guys.
What is the game?
What is the game?
Yes.
Right. And the difference is I love creating and telling stories. I hate mysteries. So, actually having, I'll posit that by saying this, because this is the worst part of those mystery games. If the mystery games were legit and it was just like, here's the mystery, solve it. Like, what about my PC? Fuck your PC. He doesn't have any skills. Solve the mystery, you weak ass person.
This sounds like Call of Cthulhu.
No, but in Call of Cthulhu, you have skills. I'm gonna make an investigate check. It's like, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You're playing Brindlewood Bay. You're playing Brindlewood Bay.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What do you mean by no skills?
I'm talking about if I would respect the games a lot more that were mystery games if they had no mechanics tied to the mystery. Like if you actually just had to go and solve it. Because the least interesting thing that ever occurs to me ever in any RPG, and I mean any RPG, this is as a GM or as a player, the worst thing, it's the thing I hate more than anything, is when a player, everybody's there at a PC, everyone's at the fucking table, and then some PC says something to the equivalent of, well, do I know anything about this symbol? And I go, maybe, make a knowledge check. And they make a knowledge check. And then I have to sit there and tell this person in front of everybody. And then the person's like, I guess I say that to everybody, or worse, they'll be like, even worse, I'll be like, yes, this symbol appears to be a variant of an ancient order dedicated to truth and justice. Mm-hmm. But this symbol represents a splinter order that took that cause too seriously and led a series of zealous crusades, which eventually led to the order's disbanding and their leader was executed. And then everyone's like, okay, we just heard that. And the player goes, guys, now I got talking character. I believe that this is an ancient symbol. And everyone's like, shut the fuck up. I hate you so much.
No, I actually enjoyed that. That's very funny. We've played that on the table and I've enjoyed it every fucking time. Especially when they
And
purposely get
this
something
is
wrong,
why
or they
it
hold
took
something
you.
back.
And this is why it takes you 35 sessions to get through the Fall of Plaguestone.
For a plague stone. Yes, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And yeah, so because there's nothing interesting to me. There's just nothing in. There is nothing interesting to me about my PC making a check to decipher the cryptography symbols using my cryptography skill, and then the GM is just telling me. They're like, "Hell, here it is." It's like I don't feel like it's weird. I know. Maybe this is a Derek thing.
I feel like this is definitely Derek.
But in D&D, if I make a strength check and kick in the door, I feel strong. But in D&D, if I make the cryptography check or I make the knowledge check and then the DM tells me what's in the box text, I don't feel smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if you're supposed to feel smart.
In fact, I actually feel kind of stupid. I actually feel less smart.
Yeah, that part's a you thing. That second part is you. That's a Derek special. We got a chat.
Oh, we did, and this will be the last one because it is the sun is risen. The sun is risen.
He's noticing the sunrise come through the window.
The sunrise is coming through. I can turn off my light now. All right. A shower thought I had the other day is that the irony about the GNS score is that the GNS score of life is almost 100% G. I call it the GNS paradox. I can go into more detail in DC if people care.
That feels like a dumpster fire topic.
Oh,
but
that is.
I somewhat agree.
I kind of agree. It's definitely not narrative because life never works out the fucking way you expect it to be. Like, it should happen this way. Nope.
Yeah. But and it's weird because like it's definitionally
well you can't simulate. Well, no, you can't simulate. It is what is
but
being
you're not
simulated.
Exactly. You cannot simulate it.
It is
it's
what it is.
What it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's kind of like the shared fiction in an endgame. Sorry, in endgame. It's just a shared fiction. You don't influence it. It's just what it is.
All right. Last wheel spin for our special EUNZ special stream 300 spectacular. Can you believe it? 300 streams, man? That's crazy. All right. Selden. Jared Sorensen review of Northern Reaches. What is the game beyond PF2? Well, Selden, unfortunately, Vin's not going to be able to really answer that question. So I'm not going to remove your question, but I am going to respin because you don't know anything about Northern Reaches. But the answer is, what is Northern Reaches? It's about building. He doesn't even know what the Jared Sorensen's thing. All right. If numbers no burr, what are we even doing here?
What are we even doing here? Best one to end on possible.
No, it's a question. It's a question mark. Is it?
Okay.
So if numbers do not burr, what are we even doing here? Is that true?
Playing a fucking story game. playing some bullshit. What are we doing here?
Numbers.
I agree with the question. Being bored mostly. Good answer, fucking Alia.
Good. I think Vin submitted this one. No. Here's the thing. I think progression is important. There's a game. There's elements to it that actually change. The Star Trek role-playing game. Now, this is first edition. The second edition's out. Now, I'm not like an expert in this game, so I can't speak to it like 100%. But basically, it's like if you play levels and you get enough advancement points or whatever like that, you can like swap one of your skills out for a different skill.
Sure.
So it's like not progression. You like don't get better. And to be fair, that's kind of accurate, to a certain extent. Like in the show, like, the characters don't go 0 to hero. They start off damn super proficient and they end the show like you're not like by the end of the show, you're like, wow, this character is noticeably more smart than they were at the beginning. It's not like, but like at the beginning of the show, he was just an engineer, but now he's an engineer, a pilot, a warrior. Now there are TV shows, including science fiction, where characters do, acquire a lot of skills like that. But Star Trek is not one of them. And while that may be accurate to the game, I find it to be kind of uncompelling. I like a certain amount of progression. It doesn't have to be vertical though. It can be horizontal. And that's why numbers for me do not have to go burr. Like as long as I am increasing the scope and ability of my character, that doesn't necessarily have to mean the ceiling. It could just mean the available of options. Then,
So I'm going to call this, and I don't entirely agree with the statement. I'm going with it anyway because it's funny. It's the horizontal progression fallacy. And what I mean by that is the idea is that, oh, you can have horizontal progression and the game will continue to get interesting and stay interesting. And the challenges will be able to escalate to some degree. But you'll always be able to find new ways around it because of your new horizontally gained tools. For me, that's like, yeah, but it's kind of cheating because the enemy is going burr.
Not necessarily.
If they're not going burr,
well, because I'll counter with the vertical
right.
progression fallacy.
Yep.
Which is I'm getting so much stronger, and so is the enemy. So nothing's changed.
Oh, that I agree with. That's some bullshit. That's some fucking hot bullshit, and that's why sandboxes are better than like PF2.
But also too, and I mean this legitimately. Like, how often are you leveling to say 10 in your D&D 5e game or your D&D 3e game, and then being like, hey, yeah, that was you know what we're going to do this session? We're going to go fight a bunch of CR1 orcs. Who's ever doing that?
Well,
nobody.
You say that. That's actually pretty funny. We were playing Abomination Vaults 2 weeks ago, and we are now level 6, no 5, and our GM literally just switched to XP from Milestone.
Are you on level 5? Are you on level 5 of the dungeon?
No. No, we are technically, but but because there's 7 players, everything's being bumped up quite a bit in difficulty.
Oh. Have you found
or 6 players.
Have you gone to the tavern yet?
Oh yeah, that was very funny. We got the monster next door to the tavern to kill everyone in the tavern. Which I feel like is the solution they intended. Oh no, so they didn't intend.
Oh no, they didn't.
But because the whole apparently there's a whole NPC and a whole fucking discussion and like a mini game that happens in there.
Oh, there's a whole battle. There's literally there's an entire 3-page battle of the bands sub game that they put in there. It's crazy.
Yeah, we just killed all of them intentionally. What we did the moment we switched to XP was we immediately went up. It was like, wait, we can level by just killing things. Sweet. And then it became PF2. So we went back up to the top level of dungeon and started killing everything we'd skipped because we didn't care about killing it because it was milestone. But now it's like, oh, now we get XP, and we just fucking murdered everything.
Yeah, but what were you getting, like 4 XP per monster?
Didn't matter, because we were like 150 XP from leveling.
All right, I'll buy that.
So we're like, anything matters. Yeah, anything matters. So we killed everything from the top of the dungeon down to level 5.
Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a loser. Like I said, when I've run mega dungeons many times, maybe we have like 5 or 6 players.
It's a feature of mega dungeons.
I would say a lot of times we would have like between 5 to 6 PCs in the group. 7 was an exception, but even when we had 7, the number of like Dungeon Time Extreme technically had 7 players. There was never a time where all 7 players were present. Like, it just never even happened. But you might have a core group of 6 people and they're on level 6 of the dungeon, and maybe the group's various levels 5 and 6 and 7, and then maybe like 3 people show up one night.
Yeah,
and they're like, yeah, fuck level 6. Like, we didn't clear out all of level 4. Let's just go back there and kick ass and take names. Or the whole group might show up and they'd be like, guys, I don't want to deal with the challenge of whatever bullshit Derek has for us. Let's go back to level 3. We only did like 3 rooms on level 3 before we found the stairs, and we just decided to go down because we were being assholes. Let's just go back there and just like, you know what, wizard,
fucking murder everything.
Wizard, let's cast your buffs, go melee. Like, you're gonna go like, just
let's just see how you go.
Let's just see how you do, like.
Yeah. So for the games we like playing, which is sandboxes, the vertical progression fallacy is bullshit. Doesn't exist.
Right. Because I mean, again, I understand that fundamentally it's not challenging, and that makes it kind of boring, and it does take a long time, which also makes it boring. Yeah. But you haven't played Pathfinder 2 until like you're hitting with your -10 map attack, and like you're critting on like an 8 or higher on like your second attack.
Feels so good.
Now the thing that is disappointing about Pathfinder 2 though is that at least in these older games, because see, this is something maybe you can even get behind of original D&D. People are like, I don't understand it. It's the same thing that we've always had. Fighters, THACO, went down by 1 every level. And that essentially is the same as getting +1 BAB every level. So you could think of it as the fighter's THACO went burr.
Yep.
but armor classes weren't.
Hmm.
Right, so it's just like third edition. But now third edition kind of made up for it because you had all these bullshit, kind of things where it's like, the second attack's -5, the third attack's -10, the fourth attack's -15. But old school D&D didn't have that. So in old school D&D, monsters, even lower level monsters, were probably going to hit you because your AC wasn't that high.
I like that too, by the way. I like that too.
And I like that too a lot too. Yeah. And so what it meant, because unfortunately the thing about Pathfinder 2 is if you throw a PL -5, that's party level, -5 monsters at the party, they're just not even going to hit. They're just
hit, which means it's not a game.
It's literally a waste of your time. Like the GM could literally just say they're all dead. And it wouldn't even make a difference. And even if you said like, oh well, we lost, maybe we hit 2 or 3 times, right? Enough for that like one low level heal spell AOE or one treat wounds, it just doesn't matter. But in old school D&D where you didn't have access to that kind of infinite healing resources, you might fight 30 orcs and your AC is not so high that they like are going to just never hit you. And when they do damage to you, you're like, well, I have 75 hit points. Well, they took me down to 60. And you're like, okay, I'll heal that back to full instantaneously. Nope. There's no healing surge. There's no short rest hit dice. There's no focus spells. There's no treat wounds. Hell, even a long rest restores 1 hit point per night. So unless you're going to tap into your magical power, that low level creatures, you got to kick their ass. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But they still presented, if not a threat of annihilation, they presented a threat of
they wore you down
of wearing you down, of ablation, right? Not annihilation, ablation. So and I think that's really I think that is really fun. That is actually really compelling, where you're like, I know we're gonna beat all these things and we're gonna kill them all, but it's really more about like, am I gonna kill them all and lose 5% of my hit points, or am I gonna kill them all and lose 20% of my hit points? That's like me losing the fight. Like I'm going to win the fight. It is, it is without doubt. But
how are they going to hit me? Is the
question. How often are they going to hit me? So, anyways, Elia gets the final statement. She says, "That's the way it should be. The world shouldn't be an Oblivion simulator where bandits in magical glass armor try to mug you. PC should actually get stronger. People were like, Derek, Oblivion did a remaster. You should play Oblivion. It's funny. I own Oblivion. It's still in the box in the shrink wrap. I have.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yep. Yes. Sure.
I own it, and I never even installed it.
I feel like you wouldn't like Oblivion.
Maybe not. I don't know. Smith loved the Elder Scrolls games, going back to Daggerfall.
Yeah, but Smith has good taste in video games. Like Smith likes good games.
Yeah. So he did buy me a game and gave it to me on Steam a while ago. Some like Ghosts of Tsushima. Ghosts of Tsushima, yeah. So I haven't played that one, but it's on there. But now I have time. Right now I'm going to be the video game Twitch master. So
you might like it. You are a weeb at heart. So
I am most definitely not. But now that I have time, I also want to. I do want to watch with Bob. I do want to watch Record of Lodoss War, and I want to watch. I want to have Bob watch. LP Curio, we've been down that dark path already about VTuber Derek, and let's just say it did not yield very positive results.
The Discord had disagreed.
The Discord definitely disagreed with our potential assessments.
I was on board though, so I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
No, I mean, listen, I don't need to be a VTuber because we get to make this connection, and you already know what I look like, so it's kind of pointless at this point. But yeah, so anyways, streams like today were awesome. I mean, again, it's crazy that I could be streaming in what is essentially the 6 in the morning for me. Actually, it's 7. It's actually 7 in the morning. We started with 28, 30 people. We are up to 70. So this lends credence to the fact, Vin, that we should do it a little later in my time, so that as we get into,
you can sleep before the stream.
Right. I'll just get up. I'll just get up early. Call it an early day, and definitely do that. So I should do a ROLW watch party with the patrons.
Rise of the Ring Lords. Oh no, that's not it. Our LW. Record of Lodoss War.
Oh, Record of Lodoss War. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite animes ever. My only favorite anime ever. So I've seen both, and I'm just a fan of, like, I guess the original or whatever. I don't know what the difference is between an OVA and something else, but if OVA is the one with like, you know, Parn and Deedlit and Gim and Woodchuck and Ato, then that is the one I like. All right. Well, Vin, thank you, man. That was
The
awesome.
sun is risen.
The sun has
has
risen.
indeed
And
risen.
for you, it's what, like at 9 p.m.?
Yeah, it's only 9 p.m.
Yeah,
I
so
could
there
go
you go.
for a bit longer, but you're tired. So.
No, I'm gonna cash it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, John, we'll definitely do that. I mean, again, we'll probably do it on the Patreon because then we don't have to worry about all this copyright bullshit. I don't know how people listen. I literally will play 5 seconds of like a song from like Record of Lotus War or something, or like something, and I will get not a copyright strike, but I will get your stream has been demonetized and they're taking all the money. I don't understand how these reaction people get away with like showing as much as they show. It's
I
crazy.
don't either. I mean, there's a bunch of rules they jump and hoops they jump through, but I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know.
Yes, I must turn to mist and rest in my coffin. I'm a big fan of vampires turning into mist. Not so much of them resting in coffins. I think that's kind of lame.
But before we go, though, back to the core topic.
Yeah.
Are you going to do a Shadowheart product or not?
So let me say this. It is a rare thing that I have been a fan of Dungeons and Dragons my whole life.
Yeah.
And I have played every edition of the game. And have been what I would describe as a zealot or a master of all of these editions and love them.
Sure.
I mean, like, I'm like, you know, like people the other day, I mean, I did miss one or something like that. But, you know, people were like, randomly, I was like, oh, I know all the 3E iconic characters' names, you know, and I just started busting off all the different, you know, iconics from 3E Player Handbook, okay? It's super nerd. And then...
I mean, you described it as your religion, and I think that's pretty accurate.
An edition came out that I thought was meh. Not bad, just meh. There are other better games to play. And then we have this world pandemic, and I decide, and I happen to have a photo studio, and I decide to start a YouTube channel along with about 27,000 other people during this pandemic. And it turned out to be very good for a lot of people. But it happened at the time when for the first time ever that I wasn't like a super fan of the current version of D&D. It's the time that D&D has been the most popular it has ever been.
This checks out. Derek likes bad games.
So talk about a misstop. So other people are now, I'm not like complaining. I'm just making a point that it has been a rare thing with this channel that because I'm not going to sell out and I'm not going to do something I don't believe in. There's a reason I don't do 5e videos. There's a reason I don't do 5e content. I don't play the game, and I don't hate
the system.
No.
Like, you're on record for liking 5e.
Correct.
It's just not your favorite system.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna
to make content about it.
Right, and I don't think there's enough content for me to make about it. So it is a rare thing when I have an interest in a subject matter or a game that actually kind of has a kernel of popularity.
Yeah,
and in this case,
you like Shadow Dark.
Shadow Dark, yeah, and in this case, Shadow Dark has what I would call a fairly strong and growing community based around it. So the fact that I like dungeons and I like Shadow Dark and I like the old school style play and I think that would be cool to make and blah 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 blah. And Derek's known
and you
for
don't have a job,
and I don't have a job, and Derek's known for like talking about mega dungeons and being a big fan of mega dungeons, putting his money where his mouth is, blah blah blah. It just so happened now, like for example, imagine this scenario, but I was talking about like Avatar Legends, like that's like normally what you would get, or like Derek being like, I'm gonna make like a full campaign setting for Monster Hearts, and everyone would be like, "Oh, dude, no! Like, you need to be thinking about the cash, son. Like, what's going on? Like, how are you gonna eat next month, right? Like, you got to think about that." Normally, that's what Derek would be doing, right? It'd be like, "Guys, I'm here to announce I'm doing a Kickstarter. That's right, we're gonna be doing Mouse Guard." You know, everyone's like, Derek, come on, you know." So in this case, it's something that's even somewhat popular. You know, obviously Kelsey just did she did a $2 million Kickstarter. She did $1 million Kickstarter, and it's very popular. You know, you can actually play this at, you know, it's kind of hilarious. We were looking at the Origins game fairs in Columbus. A bunch of patrons of Knights Last Call are going. If you're going to Origins, make sure if you see us, people will be repping their Knights gear. Come by, say hi. We'll be playing some games. The Knights are actually pretty sweet because a lot of people are like, I'm not even really signing up for events at the con anymore. I'm just scheduling games with fellow Knights to play games. But it's funny because you go to the event listing. We were doing this on thing, and it's like, D&D is at the top, and then like Call of Cthulhu, Shadowrun is at the top, and then Shadow Dark is near the top, and then at the bottom are all the games that we've covered, and it's like there's one game, so there's like one game event for the whole convention. Like
I like when we saw that the 4th misspelling of D&D 5e
yes
beat like half the list.
Yeah. It was the 4th time that D&D 5e had appeared, but this time it was like DND 5e instead of Dungeons and Dragons. And like below that was like, oh look, there's Wild Sea and there's Torchbearer and there's there's 40,000. There's 35,000 people here, and one person,
one Dragonbane game.
One person is going to run Dragonbane at this 35,000 person con. Yeah.
Even that's a fucking amazing system.
Yeah, LP. Yeah. Here. I'm gonna. You know what I'm coming up with? I'm coming up with my third-party hack of Tubos. Yeah, exactly. So.
But for once in your life, you actually have some level of alignment.
Correct.
With something people want.
Which a lot of people have also pointed out. It's also very easy to imagine. And I was trying to say it's not the same, and it wouldn't align. And they're like, just shut up, Derek. Just shut up. They were like, it's also really easy to do a stretch goal where you go, oh, and if we get the stretch goal, we'll port it, to 5e, or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Super easy.
But yeah.
And it's funny because I just want to say that for we've had, obviously I love the Discord because everyone disagrees with everybody, and that's fine. But let's be fucking real here. You're a data analyst. I'm literally a rocket engineer.
Right.
Porting a fucking game system between Shadow Dark and 5e is not hard. Stop fucking coming at me with that bullshit.
No, it's not hard. What I was trying to say is that the
I don't think you were saying that, were you?
Well,
you were saying there were different goals between the systems.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. Is that and I was really tossing.
Other people were saying it's hard, and I was like, "Fuck you, no, it's not."
Well, and I was really mostly talking about it from the perspective of even like PF2, because I was like, in Shadow Dark, if I was designing a game for Shadow Dark, I would totally put like a I don't know, a magical curse in there or something like that, and you drink from the fountain. It's like your character turns invisible permanently, right? Like I would totally put that in a Shadow Dark dungeon and be like, it's a it's a blessing and a curse. How make it work for your advantage. Try to mitigate it as best as you can. And you're like, well, that's pretty fucked up. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, can I get it cured? I'm like, I mean, I guess if you want to, you could try, but do you want to? And that kind of experience is exactly the type why I play those kind of games. Because it's like it's not.
And you cannot do that to someone's 5e character.
And you cannot do that to 5e, and you definitely can't do that to someone's Pathfinder 2nd Edition character, right? So, but again, that's the type of kind of thing that I could get away with. Omniscient, thank you for $30 for 300 stream. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we are at the very end, so I'm not going to do a tangent. But you know what?
I feel like he needs at least. You should do it.
All right,
you can do a quick one.
We'll do a quick one. We'll do lightning round. Omniscient, you get this one's for you, buddy. It's the last one. Thank you, Omniscient, for the amazing tip. Thank you so much. Oh, it's Boothby. Damn you, Boothby. He's here. He says, good morning. How would you use clocks in a dungeon?
This is literally, we're on the same topic. Shadow Dark. It's perfect.
Well, here's how I would use clocks in a dungeon. It's really simple. I would determine two things. One, what happens either because of a faction or like a group of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or something that is actually time bound or event bound. What happens when that clock
I'd use multiple. That's
okay?
Another way to put it.
And then determine what makes that clock go up. And try to, as quickly as you can, possibly as you can, let the players know that. And let them know that their consequences of their actions are going to have this. So, I mean, it's silly, but a clock could be something as simple as like, every time you guys kill a goblin patrol, right? The hobgoblin, the orcs surge to the dungeon, that clock is filling up, and the clock is just a way to represent very complex dynamics. It's a way to communicate information clearly to the players. Just so, because again, the same reason that we don't talk about like what is the size of the laceration on your arm, we just use hit points. It's an easy way to say, are you hurt or not? And clocks are just a great way of representing the fiction in a way that's very clear cut. There's not going to be any misunderstandings. Wait, if I had known that they were this close to taking over, we would have done something different. And it's like, sorry, there was a miscommunication. No, but if you say the clock is at 7 of 8, everybody understands that,
Absolutely. It's just a communication tool, and it's a great one. So it's like, I've used it for factions inside a dungeon. I've used it for...
We got another tip, all sec.
$10. It's late for a wheel spin, but I'm obligated to represent NZ.
Shadram says $10. Too late for a wheel spin, but I'm obligated to represent the NZ. Thank you, Shadram, so much.
I feel like we already answered the dungeon one. We can do another spin.
Yeah, we'll do another spin. But yes, to counter answer Ayla's question, do you think a clock that players can't see and aren't aware of has any value? Minimal. I will say that. I mean, at that point, it's a bookkeeping item. It's not a game item.
It's a bookkeeping tool.
But it's about as useful as a Post-it note.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
it's literally about as useful as supposed to, but it's still useful. I like it.
No, it's useful in that regard, but it doesn't have any sort of impact on the play pattern until the player,
because a lot of the benefit of clocks is the player psychology changes.
Correct. And
you don't get that, but you still keep all the record keeping benefits.
As I said, it's all about player agency, and to gain player agency, you need to have knowledge, but you also have to have the ability that your choices and actions and decisions can actually make a difference. Dungeon Monster says, damn, just noticed this was on, joined and started watching from the beginning. Well, Dungeon Monster, you're in for a long 3-hour run, but all right, we're going to do one last one representing the NZ, representing the place where once upon a time I was going to go, and now I don't have a job, so I probably never go, which is Australia and New Zealand, and I want to go to Hobbiton, and I want to live there. All right. Rocket Vault Games. MMO mechanics that should be used in TTRPGs.
Boss mechanics.
Let's
fucking go.
Raid mechanics. I mean, if you really want fights to be interesting, that's a great place to go, is to look at raids. And I've used a lot of MMO raid mechanics to make really cool, interesting bosses. If combat is supposed to be something that is a big part of your game, and the tactics and all the player options and stuff like that, that's a huge one. Another one,
if that's part of your game,
which I don't think gets it gets shit on almost every one of these games, and yet it's usually one of the most popular things that people do. In fact, there's entire genres of games that are just this, is gathering and crafting.
Interesting.
And I mean, Stardew Valley is ultimately just that without the combat. And in a lot of these MMO games, people spend more time, or even as much time, harvesting herbs and mining ore and crafting things and getting pieces and parts. And D&D and all these other game systems go, make a D20 check, spend some gold. Like, they completely shit on it. And they completely skip it. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity, because I think a lot of people, that's kind of why they play. Like, the adventuring is almost like secondary to, I want to be an herbalist. I want to be a miner. I want to be a smith. I want to be a craftsman. So.
Well, what I found is the moment you put in crafting mechanics, people like them, especially if you make them if you lower the barrier to entry of them.
Brandon says, problem with gathering and crafting is hard to make it a whole table exercise. Brandon, I completely agree with you, but this gets back to what I was talking about. It's about idea of taking the RPG and expanding it to becoming a whole life thing, where you start thinking about mechanics of the game that exist outside of the session, right? And I think that's where that's a way to keep your players engaged from between the sessions. One thing that I think a lot of GMs struggle with is they're thinking about their game all the time. And rightfully so. And so there feels like there's a discrepancy when you have players who didn't think about your game until they were like, oh, shit, I got to go to my buddy's house. And then they drive over there. And then as soon as the session ends, they're like pulling up their phone and they've already forgotten everything they had. And they will not think about your game again until maybe even you ping them. And you're like, yo, are you in for tomorrow? And they're like, oh, yeah, totally. I didn't think about it at all, So I think, bringing in ways to keep, like Kelsey was talking about on Roll for Combat. Off-session hex crawling. Like, let the players discuss all the minutia of, should we go through the hill hexes or should we go through the forest hexes? Let them do that offline. Let them do that as part of a group chat. Let them do it as with a map that they can, Jenga with or something like that, rather than eating up that valuable session time. It's more procedural, and you can move those procedural elements to this offline play. And we know the popularity of, this is a brand new idea. We know the growing popularity of solo RPGs. So what about a way to blend them? What about a way to blend the group RPG with offline solo RPG activities. Now you might say, Derek, that seems like a brilliant idea. Exactly. That's why that's what I'm doing with Dragontide. And that's also why Dragontide doesn't exist yet. But the idea of Dragontide is that you will have, it's our massively multiplayer Dragonbane game, is that you will have the ability to sit down with 5 players and a GM and go do a cool Dragonbane adventure for 3 or 4 hours. But then during the rest of the week, maybe that week you couldn't even get to an adventure. We are going to have mechanics that use your character in a solo way that still impacts the community game. And that way you can feel, like you're participating even if you can't get to a group.
Yeah. I have a third answer.
Yeah.
For mechanics to borrow from MMOs.
Oh, okay.
Quest rewards that are told to the player before they start the quest.
Oh, yeah. That's actually
so you will get this item, this much XP.
Yeah.
Fucking game changing. It makes people actually want to do shit.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're just right. That's the same. That's why I don't like milestone experience where you don't know what you're doing, because it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. How do a quest goes, oh, I want to do that quest. I'm excited to do that quest because, I want
when
that.
I use XP, this is what I do.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
it's a bribe. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally a bribe,
Yeah.
Aluvatar says, oh, yeah, the name's a ripoff, but I might be a free tangent for Derek. Well, if you would put Eru in there, then we would be okay there. Boothby says, Sigh, trying some offline play with my group, only one person engaged with it. Well, Boothby, as we know, you have...
I think that's pretty common, to be honest.
I think that is pretty common, but good stuff. But Aluvatar, I'm glad you were able to catch here, even though we are wrapping up. But, hopefully we're going to have more of these. Again, not every week. But if we can, we'll try to do these, at least once a month, maybe a random twice a month. While I'm in this phase where I don't have, like, for example, normally I'd be like, oh, I'm waking up. I'm like waking up in the next 50 minutes to go to work. And now I'm instead going to go to bed. I'm going to eat something.
Yeah, it's weird. We're catching the morning wake up crew. That was.
I know we've gone through the whole thing. But well, thank you, Vin. Thank you for coming in celebrating.
Whoa. You can't fucking get away that easy. Are you making a Shadow Heart product?
Okay, well, I don't know what Shadow... No, I'm not making a Shadow Heart project.
Shadow Dark.
I don't know what I mean. I don't know what that means. I'll say this. Okay. This is the answer. The answer is I have to take care of some business things first, because right now I do not make enough money once I purchase my insurance, and I live in the United States, so I'm going to have to spend like $600 a month to get a high deductible plan that covers nothing.
Far out. That's wild.
Yeah, that is for a single 40-year-old guy
That's
who's
crazy.
So my monthly expenses are going to go up by about $600. So, which is the opposite direction that they need to go.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And with that additional burden, because right now my employer, right, number one, I was with an employer health plan, and they use the advantage of having all these people, right, to get leverage and get better
cost down.
Yeah. But then also most employers and share as part of your compensation, right? They pay for your health insurance, a good part of your premium. And my employer did that, so I didn't actually pay that much out of pocket for my premium. But now that I'm on my own, I'm with the wolves. So my expenses are going to go up, and then obviously I have all my bills and all that stuff. And I've contracted certain things, but I don't live a very extravagant lifestyle, and I don't have like debt, and I don't have, I own my car. I don't have student loan debt. I pay my mortgage at a really low interest rate. Any case, right now with me basically being negative each month, I'm basically living out of my savings. Now it's not like all coming out of my savings. I make some money, but if I could figure out a way to do a couple of things to get the money so it's at least at parity or nearly at parity, then I feel like, okay, now I can legitimately say I can take 6 months and try to put something together, because there was no way I would.
Hearing is you need 100 more patrons.
Probably somewhere in that neighborhood, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Northern Reaches did. Now, this is where it's funny. Northern Reaches did great. We had this huge surge. How many of those people? But then the Forge came in and said, "We need more money." So, kind of like my Northern Reaches server costs are going to, go times 4 times 5 per month. So that kind of counteracted that. But
Yeah.
It is the case that somewhere in that neighborhood, or maybe these extra streams and extra tips or something
With
like that.
Twitch subs, and that kind of stuff.
Right. The affiliates, once we get our affiliate status on Twitch and people start maybe giving, if they're so gracious and so generous to give me their Twitch Prime sub, that could be a couple $100. That might actually offset some of that insurance cost, which would be fantastic.
Yeah. Which is twitch.tv/Lives of Last Call.
It is twitch.tv/Nights of Last Call. If you're not following, please follow. And then, like I said, we're hopefully going to get affiliate status here soon. And then if we do, and you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, or if you just want to support us, I would absolutely appreciate that, especially if it's a Twitch Prime sub, because it doesn't cost you anything, and I'll happily steal the money out of Jeff Bezos's pocket. George says, time for an OnlyFans, mate. George, if one of my goals is also to work out a lot while I'm not working, and so maybe give that another 6 to 12 months. Maybe I can get this thing down to below 20% body fat. Then we could talk. If we can get to a point where I feel like there's some degree of of parity in terms of the cash flow.
Because the main thing it sounds like that.
I don't want to be losing money every month and digging out of my savings and then go, I'm going to spend the next 6 months working on a Shadow Dark dungeon. But if I can
that's what I was. Well, that's what I was going to say. For the main thing to point out is when you make a product, it's not going to take 1 month. It's going to take a long time, right, which means you're going to have to be able to financially support yourself while you create the product.
But I also, just as a principle, believe this is just me personally, and I think this is a good policy. Anyways, also good policy for people who might be supporting Kickstarters. I don't want to be like, hey guys, I really want to build an 11 level mega dungeon. I have nothing made, but I have a couple of ideas. Maybe check out this stream. Here's my goal. If we get it, I'll do it. And then you're like, okay, so there's nothing made, and I'm backing this. Why? In the hopes that it gets done. 6 months or 3 months. I'm not saying it'll be completely finished, but there'll be a lot of it, and you could at least be like, hey, and if you back today, you can get level 1. You can start playing it today. As soon as the campaign ends, I will send you the PDF. The other levels are coming. We're going to get art. We're going to get a printing done potentially, depending on what happens with tariffs. All that other stuff. Yeah. But I like the idea that there should be some concrete poured when the Kickstarter starts.
That's actually you're more open than I thought you'd be. I thought you'd want to be pretty much almost done before you put on Kickstarter.
In an ideal world, that would be the case. I just don't know how financially reasonable that is.
That's fair. Yeah. So I think that's a very reasonable thing. If you can figure out your finances, then because it's not going to be a month. It's going to be a 6-month haul before you even really have anything to show for it.
Correct. Yeah. Somebody said something in chat. They're like, Derek, after that stream, they're like, Derek, think about it. If you did this like Dungeon 23, they're like, you could have the whole thing done in like 2 months. So I was like, oh, buddy, you do not know me at all. Now to be clear, now Somber says hello from Poland. Hello, Somber. It's good to have you. Fundamentally, just throwing this out here, I kind of want to have 500 rooms. But
500 rooms. Okay.
But one of my philosophies is I don't like dungeons filled with empty rooms. I think there is a strategic use for certain empty rooms. And by empty room, I mean like no direct encounter, but it should still have information or has something that the party could use. Like I'm talking about the truly empty rooms that a lot of these this mega dungeon has 500 rooms. How many of those rooms say this 20 by 20 room is bare and there's nothing but dust, and maybe a bone.
Yeah.
There's a lot. You're paying for that.
Yeah.
So even if I designed 2 rooms a day, every single day, it would still take me
most of a year.
It would still take me over a year, most of a year. So and that's probably not realistic. So but yeah, I mean, I think
I was going to say 6 months is actually short. I would assume a mega dungeon will take like 1.5 to 2 years to make, like properly.
It depends. So, I mean, I think with especially with me not working, I mean, there is
and with AI tools now, like you're not against them, and I'm not against them either. The not because you never let the AI do the final pass, but it doing a lot of the basic grunt work for you.
The editing, the grammatical stuff, like organization and stuff like that. It's very good at that stuff.
But as a first pass, and like little bits and pieces here, it's dramatically speeds things up. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. I think it's a if I can get the finances sorted, yes, that's what it sounds like to me.
Right. So and again, I think doing the Twitch thing, getting the affiliate status, that'll help. Growing the Patreon a little bit, that'll help. Doing a couple extra streams or figuring out ways, maybe, who knows, maybe I'll start playing Final Fantasy 1 and I'll blow up on Twitch, right? Yeah.
I feel like you playing Baldur's Gate 3 could actually be very popular because I'm sure you fucking hate that game.
Oh my god, I would hate it so much.
Some people will watch you just to hate you hating it.
I would just
and
be like,
that'll
I'd be like, oh, why are we doing this? What is going on? The moment voice acting starts, I'm already tilted. So. Shadram says today Twitch, tomorrow TikTok, then we take over the world. Oh, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be on TikTok.
I'm saying that live streaming dungeon creation could be awesome. I would watch that every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we could like do it like literally like you could see every single part of it, but you know,
yeah,
I think
no, you wouldn't be able to.
But also too, like if you could follow it along, right? That hopefully builds interest and gets people advised. And stuff
absolutely,
like
I think it works, and you'll get tips and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So my hope actually is that I have an opportunity, maybe at Gen Con. By then, hopefully things will even we'll know one way or the other if I'm stable or not. But I almost certainly will see Kelsey. I think there's definitely at least a dinner planned that we're all going to. And I kind of want to pick her brain about it. I don't need her blessing. It's an open license. Anybody can do it. But like,
yeah.
just kind of like,
and she's already kind of given it to you.
Well,
she asked you to do
it. But also I think she knows the audience. You know, I think that's because I mean, there's going to be a couple hundred people from our community that'll buy it, even if they don't play Shadow Dark, just to support me.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Which is,
you know, to see something on your shelf that has the KLC logo, you know, would be cool. But really, it's more of like, does she think the community is interested in this and not, you know,
in a mega? Because it's an interesting thing. Because I think a lot of people like dungeons. I don't think a lot of people have ever even experienced a mega dungeon.
I don't think so. Not as much. Not as much. I mean, the
audience might not know it even wants it. So.
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely again, I try to espouse the benefits of it, but then like I said, we get the person who's like, stop talking about dungeons, all you talk about is fucking dungeons. All right, everybody, I'm gone, I'm done. Thank you, Vin. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight. We had a lot of fun. You know, I started off being like, oh, this isn't going to be that good, and now we are currently almost at 80 people. So you guys are amazing, and that's awesome, especially considering this is a brand new thing and it's not like our regular scheduled thing. So for you all to show up and do this is awesome, and I'm happy that even some of my North American friends were able to join on the following morning. You know, so maybe this will be our new thing where we start a little bit later. It'll be late evening for Australia. It'll be like lunch just after lunch for Europe, and it'll be early morning for our North American friends. At least on the East.
Perfect.
At least on the East Coast.
1 or 2 hours later than we did.
Yeah, that might be pretty good. But either way, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Big shout out to just bunch of people. Obviously, we had the fun spin wheels today. So, Brandon, Goblins and Androids, Smendon, My Ear Trumpet, Peter Humbug, Jack Eldridge, Smendon again, Door, Alternate GM, LP, John Bonanza, Omniscitoad, and Chadram all supported the Tangent stream today. And looks like we maintained about 20-25 viewers on Twitch as well. So, awesome stuff. All right. So, thanks everybody for hanging out. Technically, there's a stream tomorrow on Tuesday, so we'll be back. We're probably gonna do a first look. We got a couple first look that are kind of in the hopper that are queued up. So we definitely got to get those going. So stay tuned, and hopefully you'll see us next time on Night's Last Call. Maybe in your time zone soon. Vin, thank you so much. We'll hopefully get Vin on here again as well. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you next time on Nights of Last Call.
Peace.
Peace.